All right. So, yeah, both Saltmarsh campaigns are over now. Um, Sun and Moon, the same campaign, run on the same day. Um, but it went two completely different directions. So I thought it'd be pretty fun to hang out and maybe talk about the campaign and what was different for Sun versus Moon, and if you guys had any questions about the campaign or decisions that were made, the campaign that you played versus the written campaign, the Evil Tides second edition adventure that was smashed on top of the Saltmarsh adventure, all that kind of stuff. I have both Roll20 games open, which shouldn't be a problem. I hope, and I can stream both views and kind of go between the two games to show where things were different if you want to see that. But yeah, we're just gonna hang out and trade stories and all that jazz. So, does anybody want to start? Does anybody have a question for the other group or for me or anything?
I have a question for you,
Okay,
Crash.
sure.
What was the deal with a buddy?
Okay, so Buddy, I mean, like, what happened with Buddy, or why was Buddy there at all, or like
Yeah,
the whole.
why was he like following us and
Okay, so
popping up?
I have a trinket table that rolls just random trinkets. There's like 3,000 different trinkets it could generate. And when you guys were looking in the attic of the house that crawls, um, it seemed like a good place for some trinkets. And he was just a random trinket that was generated. It was just like a stuffed doll with a porcelain head wearing a sailor suit, and I was like, wow, that's pretty Saltmarsh, Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So I was like, yeah, you see this, in the attic, and Greg just like latched onto that thing, and
You
uh,
did.
yeah, and so it kind of like was like just a random drop that suddenly became like important to people, and then Thogrum's character was afraid of it. And then there was that whole thing with the prisoner of war execution and all that jazz. And I was like, huh, this is definitely the kind of time where like Dungeons and Dragons would spawn like a revenant, basically. Um, but then I was like, because like immediately afterwards, you could tell that Thogrum's character was like, man, that was kind of fucked up, and he started like living like this better life, if there was an alignment system kind of thing. And so I was like, having the party fight a revenant, it doesn't seem very cool. Like, and then seeing like how much love was going into Buddy, I was like, wouldn't it be kind of some shit if like the ghost of this guy just basically hung around Thogrum? And so it was never really in the doll. Like Thogrum himself was haunted.
Hmm.
So anytime you guys, did detect magic on the doll or anything like that, the doll was never magical. But the doll was basically what the ghost was using to communicate with the party and with Thogrum and mess with Thogrum and keep an eye on him. And it just sort of followed you guys uh, throughout your journeys, basically, until Thogrum at the end, divine intervention kind of try to take back that mistake, sort of thing, and then there was no reason for Buddy to do anything anymore. So yeah. But that's what that was. It was just a random. Yeah, it was never anything significant. It was never a big part of the game. There was nothing written in there. It was just a random trinket from like 3,000 possible trinkets that could have been spawned, and it just kind of took on a life of its own. So, like, the Sun Group did not have a haunted doll that they had to worry about at any
Yeah,
point.
we definitely did not.
Yeah. So,
That's so funny that something like that was like just came from nothing.
y-
Like
yeah, you guys had your own handout for Buddy Watches. That's how much life it took on its own. Um, yeah. I don't know. I didn't know, and the amount of belief that the druid Toothless put into it, like that allowed him to use it as a divine focus for spellcasting, which was kind of neat. But you know, in the end, it was just a doll. That's it. So yeah.
I tried like hell to figure out what it was.
We spent so much time trying to figure out what Buddy was.
We spent a lot of time.
Well, now you know, 100%. I thought it was pretty obvious by the end of the final episode. Yeah. But yeah.
And I think at one point I might have asked you that privately or
Yeah.
something. You might have dropped some hint to me about what it was and thinking about it's chippers possess the doll. That was kind of cool idea.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other questions about the campaign, the story? Questions for the other group? Cool. Yeah.
So I want to know how the other groups ended. What was their boss battle? Because like we had completely different goals. Our groups did.
Ah, okay. So this is like looking behind the curtain, Wizard of Oz style. But essentially they had the same final boss fight. They had to fight She Who Hungers in the Deep, who was very big and very hungry. And ultimately had a bunch of attacks that she never used because she was too busy just stuffing people in her mouth. Yeah, their reason for stopping her was different than your guys' reason for stopping her. You guys were stopping her, the evil group, because you were stealing all of her cookies out of her cookie jar. But I'm gonna blow your mind with this one. The good party was stopping her because it was the right thing to do. Yeah.
Nobody ever does that.
Yeah. So they were stopping her, and then they actually freed all the souls and let them go to heaven. Yeah. Which
I don't believe you.
what a crazy idea.
Yeah, we ate them and became awesome.
That's true. They got the same layer actions that you guys got because the souls, as they were escaping, were basically like, helping out on their way out the door kind of thing. They did not become powerful evil creatures. So their boss fight would have been very difficult if the Forge Cleric had not spent 10,000 gold summoning a planar ally to assist them during the fight. I would say mathematically, it would have been a much worse fight for them if they had not done
They didn't seduce an eel dragon like we did.
They did not. They did have the Behir for a while, but their Behir.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a couple comments about the Behir.
Okay.
Did your guys Behir get killed off screen?
Yes, technically.
Did it? Okay. Because I was wondering about that.
Because
Because our Behir went off when we went to go fight the dragon. It went off down a corridor and just died.
I mean, I was rolling for it, but yeah, it tried to solo an ancient black dragon by itself. It didn't turn out too well.
Breath weapon.
Yeah.
It'd be like
That was my only
sometimes.
qualm. I was like, I wish I got to spend more time with him. But he had a mission. He did his job.
Their Behir made it all the way. Well, you could tell it if you want, Sun Group, what happened to your version of the Behir, but he was around for a while.
Yeah. Kept wanting to
We
eat the
convinced him to
Aarakocra.
get along with our dragon as well.
Yeah, because they had an eel dragon that they had recruited, and the Behir, and the eel dragon and the Behir sort of had like racial tension, office romance, I guess. And if I guess is the best way to describe it. But ultimately, when they fought the manifested hunger, it killed the Behir with the stomp attack, the dimensional stomp, and teleported it away. And they did have time to go look for the body. So that was the end of that. But
Ooh, that was
made me
almost my
sad.
fate.
yeah, Oh
Oh,
yeah.
I was teleport stomped. I don't, you guys.
Not everybody's got Dimension Door to get back from the teleport stomp though.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I got teleported and stopped. I didn't die. I just got teleported.
So
Yeah.
And then I
maybe
spent the rest of the fight running back.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah. Like a poor man's banishment, basically. Probably better than a banishment, actually. Because banishment can be dispelled with concentration checks. So
Plus, you pop right back in if you come back into it.
yeah.
I had to run my ass clear across the map.
Yeah. They the moon had somebody teleported, and the area I rolled for was the layer of the optional side boss that they had already fought, but then there was a chance that scavengers from the Underdark would be there. So that would have gone really, really bad. But there was a number of places that you could have been teleported to by the stomp, which included all the way back up to the mines,
Oh god.
into the river, into the room with the armor, into the room that had the fishbowl head guy. Yeah, there were a lot of bad places that it would have teleported you to. So, it was definitely advantageous that people either made the save or managed to teleport back right away. So, yeah.
I think I was just confused that whole fight.
There was a lot, looking back, there was a lot of confusion and mind control this campaign. And a lot of confusion and mind control this campaign.
There was a lot.
I literally felt like my last feat I took was Resilient Wisdom, just because I felt like I had to, or else I was going to be a liability
Yeah.
for every fight going. This was not the campaign to make a low wisdom character.
It was
and
not.
have it be.
The
Well-
amount of times that they said wisdom save, you could make like a supercut video and it'd be like 10 minutes long. You could make a
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the campaign advertised Eldritch Horror, so I kind of felt like that was an indication that you'd be making a lot of wisdom saving throws. There'd be like some insanity and stuff involved. Basically, I don't know. As a DM, I just use the confusion spell effect instead of like a random madness, because I feel like the madness system in 5e isn't very well developed. And I feel like the confusion spell gives you a chance to act normally, but also gives you like some directives on what to do if you aren't acting normally. Whereas the random insanity thing is entirely dependent on people role-playing that insanity well. And then some of them are, I don't know, kind of insensitive to different types of like mental illness. So I kind of just lean towards anytime you would have been driven insane, it would just be like a confusion as your brain tries to process what's happening. Which does make it very RNG though. Like in the Moon group, the Bard, they got off a just a killer debuff on She Who Hungers. And then just spent sort of the rest of the fight fucking confused. Which, I mean, sucked, obviously, to not be able to do anything as your brain is trying to, like, comprehend, like, you know, what the hell's going on here. But I was happy that Tari was able to land that debuff early on, because it did end up preventing a lot of attacks and effects from landing, so... I don't know.
And it saved Pharos and Nikolai from being like, I'm taking you with me sort of deal.
Yeah.
Mm.
So.
I don't know. All the talk about confusion stuff like that. Like, if no one has seen it, you have to go back and watch Miss Illyria Payne.
No.
Oh.
No.
When she got feeble-minded, that's right. Yeah.
yeah, brain blasted. That was not good.
Yeah. So those creatures, Hydraloths, they spit water from the river Styx, and the river Styx wipes your memory. So the mechanical effect of that is a feeble mind spell. the Sun group, they all made their saves against every attempt on that, so they didn't get to see the feeble mind in effect. But yeah, Illyria played, I think, 3 sessions, 2.5 sessions, as like a what intelligence cave woman, basically,
It was
because
great.
her brain was just melted. And what was amazing about it is anytime people tried to caregive her, like keep her from hurting herself or wandering off, she would just make like the most amazing like acrobatics checks to like
Yeah.
break free of grapples, and oh yeah, it was nuts.
Oh, was it helped that half of us were like nightmares incarnate? To, like,
Yeah,
go on
you
into
guys are all scary
two
looking.
3 scary black dragon-esque monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say like what Spencer and
Turi.
Tari, and then Evan Fang spent like the whole time like chasing her down and like trying to hold her, and while the rest of us are trying to beat the rest of the Hydroloss with
So what
like
we're saying is you guys missed out. On
Yeah.
all the fun.
I don't think we did. I think we got our own fair share of different kind of mind fuckery. Like when we almost got TPK'd by a wizard.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So that's a quest that the Sun group did that the Moon group did not do. So there were rumors of like a haunted lighthouse or whatever, and the Sun group actually investigated that, and it was for reals haunted. So it was super haunted. Like spooky stuff was happening when they got to that lighthouse. And then they went down to the caves below the lighthouse, and there was like an underwater dungeon, like mini dungeon area, and an aboleth lived there, which is like a mind control mini Cthulhu creature, and it managed to mind control the party's enchanter, and then the party's enchanter hypnotic patterned everyone, and then just started to one by one just wipe out the whole group. It was really bad. It was like, I guess this is the end of the campaign. Bad. Like it was really bad. Yeah.
What saved it?
Yeah.
Critical save
I
or
had a
like
nat 20 death save.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I also critted on the thing.
Okay.
That was the lighthouse
was
that
luck.
Turi always hung out
Luck saved it.
around.
No, this one was this was over by Mintarn, which was sort of like the Tortuga of the Sword Coast. Yeah, so it was like a super haunted lighthouse that nobody could ever stay there for long. It had all kinds of like scary stories about it. I think it was dropped a couple of times as a potential side quest. But you guys with your ties to the lizard folk were kind of most often kind of pulled towards that, which is interesting because I was I was explaining that like Oakham, the old man, you guys like adopted him as like adopted grandpa and baked cookies with him, and like checked in on him to make sure that he was safe. And the Sun group would like make subtle like death threats to him, and like
Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
loved Oakham.
Did you say anything?
No, they weren't subtle, and it was really only one of us that was doing it.
Yeah.
They shall remain nameless.
So what
I mean,
if
I'm just saying, my character was a really aggressive archaeologist, and she doesn't want to get scooped by stupid old men.
Yeah. So it was very
I
awkward.
gave you an out. You didn't have to say it.
Oh, so you were
Good way
like,
to own it.
I'm like, I'm the better archaeologist. Don't or go on my turf sort of deal, or
This poor old man
I
with
mean,
his life's work.
So,
Kind of, yeah. Like Oakham had been working like the lizard swamps and Saltmarsh for decades, and then this woman gets like washed up on the shore and decides that it's her territory now. And it was very like Heisenberg, like these are stay out of my ruins kind of deal. Yeah.
he offered me advice
Oh no.
Oh no.
I went out and then got information for him so that way he can cultivate his research more with my help.
Yeah, they wrote a book together. They wrote a book together. Yeah. That's okay though. It's okay. Another interesting point of divergence was the whale hound. Because in Saltmarsh Moon, the whale hound was the ranger's animal companion and was named Spencer. And because they were an invincible Pokemon, they went on every adventure and all that jazz. In Sun, they were a very expensive purchase. They were like a they were like a purebred puppy that was purchased when the party really didn't have enough money to do so. And so, other than like one fight, they never wanted to take the Willie anywhere dangerous because Willie represented like this incredible investment of money.
But to be fair, he was clutch during that fight.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. So the ghost, the sea ghost, right? That fight after the house that crawls, where Snake Eyes was the captain and all that jazz. So you guys in Moon, you roll up on that shit. You pass all of your skill checks to bluff your way onto the ship, and then
part of the plan.
and then your bard dropped. I think it was
Person.
hold person on Snake Eyes, who even though she had Yuan-Ti magic resistance, failed and kept failing, and then you just went and like dismantled the crew. It was like surgical precision. The Sun group, that fight took like 2 sessions, and it was all over the place. It was all over the place. That battle, it was crazy. I think the main thing that was clutch in that is they had their Arakakra gunslinger up on a nearby like jutting stone, because they did this in the Kraken's Teeth or whatever, and he was just using a sniper rifle. He was just sniping everybody, and it was only like him sniping that was giving them a chance, because they were having to jump off the ship into the water and try to regroup and then back on and on and on. Oh man, it was wild. It was wild.
Jumped on and off that boat so many times.
Yeah. It reminded me of like a crazy fight in Sea of Thieves where people are falling off the boat, climbing back up on the boat. Yeah. Everything short of launching yourself out of a cannon was pretty much happening in that fight. So it was just fascinating to me.
That's only because we didn't have cannons.
Yeah, what was fascinating to me, because it was like 2 different groups, roughly the same power level, but RNGesus was like, this group will have a nearly perfect execution of their plan, and this group will not. Because you guys had similar plans. You were gonna bamboozle your way on and then get the drop on the bad guys, but it just did not. It just did not go that way for Sun, and then for Moon, it was just like, yeah, no problem, we're done. There you go. So that was pretty interesting to me. So.
Yeah, and then I accidentally gave away a jolly boat thinking it was just a rowboat.
Which set a precedent for
the entire campaign.
Yeah, that's how you guys.
That's how we got the name the Generous.
Yeah, the Generous crew.
Mm.
Yep. If they spare your life, they give you a 500 GP jolly boat. It's kind of like winning the lottery, I guess.
So did the other group get the dragon eel when we got the baby dragon? Is that how that worked out, or?
So what happened was you guys expressed an interest in assisting the lizard folk, right? So everybody went to the lizard folk, and they were like, our spirit totem creature, big crocodile, we need help, blah 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 blah. What was fascinating to me is that the good guy group killed the hell out of him, whereas the bad guy group actually was able to purge him of his corruption. Yeah, which was interesting. Yeah, so they got paid a lot, because they went back and were like, "Yo, lizard folk don't understand money," and they just bamboozled these lizard folk and took like all their fucking money. And the lizard folk were like, "You're so strong, you're so powerful. Can you help us with this black dragon?" And they're like, "We're gonna think about it." And then as soon as they got outside, they're like, "Fuck no." So I was like, okay, well that plot line's not gonna happen. So I despawned Baby Dragon for their campaign. I was like, well, they're not gonna get involved in that. So Baby Dragon was despawned for their game.
I think the timing on that was like right when Skill's War had ended, or like shortly after, and I was like, "Look, guys, I don't need to find any more dragons. Like, there's other shit we could do." Like,
Yeah.
Plus, we got our asses kicked.
How did you guys purge
on
it?
that
I'm so
island?
curious.
It was bad.
They
we
per
snuck our way in.
yeah, they snuck past him rather than kill him. And then when
We had a player that like had to quit like right before that session. So we just like made him the bait, I think.
yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
No, not. I think he was the bait.
Yeah.
He was like,
he was
"Yeah,
the bait.
we're
We made
tossing
him
that NPC out there."
We made him the bait, and then we were like, all right, well, we could just go in. We just killed that PC because he's not coming back.
To be fair, it was a paladin. He would have sacrificed himself anyway.
True. It's totally in character.
Yeah. But other than that, the down area with the evil shark, like the undead shark and all that I think played out pretty similar for both groups. That dungeon, the sunken caverns, or the flooded caverns, that turned out very similar for both groups. So
Someone in the Sun group had a deep hatred for the shark.
Oh, yes.
Uh,
All of us.
yeah.
2 restraining orders followed by
Yeah.
the shark.
Yeah. So the shark almost got the Arakakra gunslinger. He was the Illyria Pain of their group, basically. He was their crazy sharpshooter, drops 100 damage per round, kind of deal. So that was kind of interesting too, to see the two sides of the coin there, because the characters were very, very similar in their builds and their playstyle. So anytime either of those characters got damaged, it was like this rare, unbelievable occasion that I would have the audacity to damage such a sweet range dexterity character. What kind of a monster does that?
And for Garuda, it was always bad. It was like, and I'm hitting you with a crit now. It's just like, and the card is.
Well, that was a big difference too. Is your group had the crit cards, and the Moon group did not have the crit cards, and that fucking shows in the stats, because you guys had way more deaths than the Moon group had. Moon group had 2 deaths. They had a guy wander off on his own and get gunned down. Yeah. And then they had somebody tickle a kraken.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He just wanted
That's a
to
good story. That's a good story.
This bullshit.
So
Crash is like, let me tell you about this bullshit.
I think.
Oh
Gosh,
yeah,
don't
didn't you
do
go
this.
through like 4 characters?
No, I didn't.
Lars did.
yeah,
Lars did.
Oh, okay.
Larionis is a serial character creator. So he gets ideas for characters, and I think it inspires him to play much more reckless than he should. Yeah, because we had the same issue in Storm King's Thunder, but in Storm King's Thunder, the group was very healer heavy, so they would just keep bringing him back. I think by the end of Storm King's Thunder, he had been brought back from the dead like 7 times or something.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like he just played.
Is that including the time when we just gave him an imaginary heart attack because it was funny?
Yeah, I think so. I think that does include.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I knew he'd done some stupid shit on his own. Even before we got there.
He died twice in one fight, actually. Because he got killed by crypt spiders, got brought back as a zombie, and then got killed again by his teammates. as a zombie. So he technically died twice in one fight. Yeah. I think that one character had the most deaths of any character thus far. So, but in this game, like in Sun, they had a guy die in the second session, first session, yeah.
Yeah, Rurik died on Hef in the first session.
Yeah, because the
After we
giant
planned out a
centipede.
big backstory together about how he was my brother and my dad was evil.
Oh wow, I think
great.
that's why.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
No, I mean it was more our cleric just kind of inted and then let him die and ran away. But
Well, I don't think that player was relatively new to D&D, and
True.
they did not think that, I guess, DMs killed people. I don't know. They didn't think that. Yeah, they had never witnessed, I guess, like death in D&D, because
ran away.
Yeah, because when that centipede landed, I think a crit and just killed him with massive damage. Or no, it didn't kill him with massive damage.
He was unconscious.
He was bleeding out, but then the cleric was like, "Do I go and save him or do I nope out?" He just noped out. He just left. He just ran away.
He literally just ran.
Wow.
Yeah. It was House That Crawls was a really tough low-level dungeon with the rock rubs and everything else. That was a really tough low-level dungeon. For sure. That was another one. The sea caves beneath the house was another place where the Sun game almost ended in a TPK. There were a lot of almost TPKs. Like, I was constantly like, I don't know if this campaign's going to make it. Because there was a lot of times where it came down to like one. I think in the sea caves, it was Garuda, the Aarakocra sharpshooter. He got 2 nat 20s while he was at 0. So he popped up twice from being at 0, and he was that was what got.
And he wasn't even there for that session.
Yeah, and then that was what swung everything back in the favor of the party. They were able to take care of it, but yeah, it was really. When you guys were on the same track in the beginning, that was like really fascinating because I would run the content for one and then run the content for the other, and it would just play out so differently for each group. Partly because of the way the classes were set up and stuff, but a lot of it is just a D20 is a really big number for like variance. So like you're gonna have lucky nights, you're gonna have unlucky nights is a lot of it, I think. Because I feel like both groups were actually very tactical in their builds and in their play style and stuff. So it really just came down to luck a lot of times. It really did just come down to luck. So which is another thing that was different was luck of the draw. In Sun, he represented basically like Gellen's guy. Like Gellen's guy that, the party kind of figured this Gellen's sending this guy's keeping an eye on us, this guy's spying on us. Like, he would work with the party sometimes, but he was never a part of the party. He was kind of like the professional from the party patron that was there to assist from time to time. But, like, in the Moon group, you guys just sort of adopted him and, like, just kind of dragged him into your group. And then you didn't want to let him go after a while. So it was fascinating to see that sort of dynamic, too, play out between the two different groups. So
yeah, I told Ness and Johnny after the game that I was working for Gellin the whole time, and they were surprised by it. They didn't catch on until I told them at the very end.
I think that was partly because at the very beginning we did such a good job of downplaying. Like, he kept he kept getting your name wrong. He like, he didn't know, he acted like he didn't know who you were or like if you were new in town and all this other kind of stuff. So I think that foundation of lies at the beginning kind of just cast away any suspicions that you were working for him.
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting that
was really fun.
That you guys both groups ended up with the Prime Warders as their NPC patrons, because there was a number of NPC patrons in the campaign that you could have wound up with. So I did think it was interesting that both groups ended up, good group and bad group, ended up with the same NPC patron, which was kind of fascinating to me. I thought the good group, honestly, I thought Moon. I didn't think you guys would want the Prime Warders as your NPC patrons. Is there an explanation for that one, or like what?
I think a lot of it was, how we didn't really have like a party leader we didn't really have someone to follow. So maybe me it could have it was either me or me not subverting their expectations by like, since I worked for Galen, I always kind of wanted to do what he wanted to do since I was working for him. So whether or not that led to it.
Oh yeah.
I
I
I think
remember just like
it was-
actively antagonizing him at the party. I was having fun.
I don't know if you like roleplayed him any differently for like the Moon group, but for like the Sun group, he's such a prick, man. Like, I don't think like he's so unlikable. So, I don't know if that might have been.
Really? You felt like Gellin was unlikable? Oh
Yeah,
man.
No, not Gellin. The guard captain.
Oh, Eleander. Oh.
Oh,
yeah.
I think you just roleplayed Eleander's like this like pompous douchebag, and like it was like really good for us. I don't know if you did it the same way for Moon, but I like we all
Really?
hated him
He's
so much.
he's the problem? You guys killed a wizard.
So legitimately,
You guys committed murder, and he's the problem.
That murder was so shaky.
that's a good thing to bring up that I'm kind of curious about. Like, how did the Sun Group feel about Eleander as an NPC versus like Gellin Primewater as an NPC versus like Ida Owland as an NPC? Nobody sought out Kelladek as an NPC at any point. He was a potential NPC mentor. There were a couple others. The Goblet, who's in charge of the Thieves Guild, was a potential. Though ultimately the Goblet was working for the Prime Warders. So
Yeah, that's what I thought. So we just bypassed the middleman there.
I think the whole werewolf bit made Gellin more interesting.
Did you guys go on a troll hunt with Gellin? Did you guys get that chance? No.
No.
You guys spend quality time with Gellin in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to find out if he was a werewolf.
We did have a sleepover with him.
Yeah, they did have a sleep. They did have a sleepover at the. Yeah, they had the ladies of the group had a sleepover with Mrs. Primewater.
Oh no, I would have passed on that. She scared the shit out of me.
It was pretty weird. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. Like in the beginning, our relationship with him was very like, you don't trust us, we don't trust you. We're both here for business, kind of thing. And then it just kind of like grew into like, all right, we can trust each other. So like in the beginning, like we were very like hands-offish with Primewater. He was like, do this job, you piece of shit. And we're like, all right, we'll do it. You better pay us, guy. Like.
But how many dog inferences?
How many dog puns did you torture him with?
They tortured him with 0 dog puns because they were very respectable group.
No, our cleric decided, our sorcerer cleric decided he wanted to be really into his wife.
That was awkward.
Her, but he was really into her.
Yeah, she was really into him too. She painted a nude portrait of their storm cleric at full mast and gave it to them. Yeah, and gave it to them as a present at a party that was being held at at Kreb Shanker's place, the Empty Net. So that was super awkward when that got unveiled for everybody to see.
I'll never forget when you like pulled me into like secret chat after that, and you're like, "Yeah, Gellen's pretty much like, I don't ever want to fucking see this guy." And I was like, "I got you."
Yeah.
And then he died, and so we never saw him again. But
and to this day, Gellin thinks that you set that up for him. He thinks you did him a solid. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I hit Gellin with a dog pun every time we saw him. Or at
oh
least
my
tried
god. I'm surprised he didn't try to kill you. He's kind of.
I'm surprised he didn't try and kill Pharos when he first showed up and kept jabbing him in the side with a fork. I was really worried, like, you were gonna message me like, you gotta get rid of Pharos. I mean, obviously he's a player character. That's not supposed to happen. I thought me and Luck were gonna team up and like take Pharos out at one point or another.
that was
Oh,
another
no.
neat thing, was that there were two Pharoses, because originally Pharos had signed up for the Sunday morning group, and then he had like a plumbing issue the morning he was supposed to start, and I had already like seeded him into the adventure. Like they basically found Pharos instead of Ebenfang, because
Mm.
they weren't gonna deal with the lizard folk, so I wasn't gonna put stuff that would bring them back to lizard folk. Was gonna kind of take their campaign in a different direction. So I replaced the baby dragon with a different baby dragon. Um, and then that was gonna be his intro to the party, but then he had to cancel, so I was like, well, shit, okay. So they, because I found out after I think the session had already started, and they had already scouted and realized that this guy was there. So I couldn't very much be like, well, he's not there anymore. So I was like playing him, and then I think like you didn't get back to me, or you said
No,
you,
yeah,
yeah,
my life got real weird. And
yeah,
like
yeah,
that
yeah.
earlier that year, and I was like, I can't do the mornings like for the next
Right,
couple
right.
months.
And then Captain Scarf died, basically like suicided himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, I can't make the time for this anymore. So then you could make the time, and I was like, oh, you could just take Captain Scarf's place, and then that's how you ended up working for Oakham with his exploration team, and they found you when they found Oakham. Whereas the other group found you, and you're already in the world now. So I was like, what am I gonna do with this guy? So they brought you back to the town, but Sun Pharos never really got his life together. like, like you pretty much just, yeah, you just hung out in Saltmarsh,
This timeline.
drinking and feeling bad for yourself. Is pretty much what happened with Sun Pharos. So
Yep. When we were going to Daggerford finally, we were like, "Oh yeah, we saved that guy that started in with Daggerford," and we went and talked to him, and he was the most useless piece of shit.
oh, hey.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying in our game, but like, I was like, I saved your life, man. Like,
I
you
tr-
owe me.
I tried to make him unappealing as an NPC because I felt bad running somebody's personal OC as like an NPC in like a different game. So that's why I was just kind of like, I'll just make it so that he's busy feeling bad about his situation, and like what can he get out of the party and that kind of thing. And yeah. Also, Pharos has a lot of attitude in the actual game that he's in, and I feel like I delivered that amount of attitude, and you guys were just such prima donnas about any NPC having the audacity to be rude to you that you were just like, "Fuck this guy. We don't need this guy. We'll figure it out ourselves."
Yeah, but
So
by that point, we were Captain Jen of the Generous and the Generous crew. We had a serious rep going on.
it's fair. It was also interesting to see how each group took out the succubus, which was not a part of the written adventure, and not a part of the Evil Tides written adventure. It was actually just a footnote in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. The Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide's like, "Oh yeah, Daggerford, the leader got replaced with a succubus. LOL." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's kind of interesting since I set Saltmarsh right next to Daggerford. Could probably do something with that." And then Pharos needed a warlock patron, so that kind of worked out really well. And then Daggerford was trying to take the sovereignty away from Saltmarsh, so that kind of played pretty well to the campaign. So I was like, yeah, we'll just make it like, if you could take out the succubus, there's a chance that you could leverage it to get the sovereignty of Saltmarsh secured. So that whole thing ended up just being like added in because it made sense. The problem with the Saltmarsh campaign was that it wasn't a campaign. Like, it's a source book. So it says it's a campaign, but it's really not. It's like a series of like 7 adventures that have one thing in common, that there's water. That's it. And like I think 3 of the adventures don't even take place in Saltmarsh or even anywhere near Saltmarsh. So it was very frustrating to go through and find a way to sew the 7 different adventures like together into like a cohesive narrative. So like that's where I ended up with like the succubus side plot, because I was like, at no point do they ever actually deal with the sovereignty of Saltmarsh being in danger from Daggerford, even though they play it up real hard in the beginning of the module. It's never addressed ever in the written adventure. So I was like, this would be a really cool way to do that. That would kind of bring the Warlock Patron into the front and center for the one campaign. And then for the other game, it's just they got hired to assassinate this leader, and it's like, you know, they undersold the difficulty of the assassination contract, basically. They were like, yeah, kill this lady, and then the lady ends up being like a noble succubus, and it's like, oh shit. So it was very interesting to see the two different approaches the groups had to solving that particular problem. Yeah.
So, did you tell them what we did to the merfolk?
I
Because
did. I did.
it seems like it hurt you personally.
It was one of the most well executed betrayals I've seen in D&D in 27 years or whatever. So yeah, I definitely told them at the end of their campaign how you guys betrayed the merfolk, did not secure the merfolk as allies in the defense of Saltmarsh, and so on and so forth. But yeah. Did I tell you guys that the Moon group completely skipped that dungeon?
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah.
At the end, we asked you
Yeah.
about it like at the very end
Yeah.
of the last session, and I'm gonna be honest, guys. When I was going through that dungeon, I was like, "Moon group's fucked. This place is awful. Like, if you had to like actually like fight your way through it, like, oh my god."
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that was crazy. That dungeon would have been worse than the I think it was Lost Mines, the wild magic one in Tales of War. It was wild how long and terrible and how many troops were there.
Well,
I
as
thought the Moon
written,
group
that
was done.
adventure was supposed to be an espionage mission. Like they expected like a group of like level 7 characters to go into that fortress and get and not get caught, and then get reconnaissance and come back. That was the adventure. Was sneak in, get as much information as you can, and then get out of there. But the problem is, by the time both groups were ready to go there, you guys were already like level 10, 11. So I changed it from going to get information to go to get information, and if you can kill their leaders, because I needed something that would kind of up the difficulty of it a bit. So, and that actually worked well with Evil Tides, because there is a part of Evil Tides where you have to go into a Sahaugan city and find out about She Who Hungers and the ritual and all that kind of stuff. So I was able to kind of combine those two together, and then one of you just skipped the whole dungeon entirely. So that was cool. But
Did they come across Surge or have to deal with Surge in any way?
Surge hates
Let's
us.
talk about Surge.
Yeah, sure. Talk about Surge. Surge was in both campaigns and received about as much care and respect in both games.
No, I feel like
I'm
he received
still
more
holding a
respect.
grudge over all that.
It's okay.
We ended up like Afra had him, but like she never hit with it.
Like,
So like he
literally
was like
never.
No,
really
it's not that she
bad,
didn't hit
and like
with it.
and
She
was
couldn't
hungry.
hit with it. She tried
Yeah.
so fucking hard.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like she just couldn't hit with it. Like like she did try. I give it to her. And then like eventually she was like, "Yeah, I'm just done with this thing. Like I can cast Shadow Blade now. I'm a warlock. It upcasts. It's great. Fuck you, Surge." And but to like keep getting it charges, she was just killing like fish, like literally fish, like
Surge was
level
hard to
0
please.
probably fish.
He's very hard to hard to please.
And then we were like like we had like Larionis's like character died, the one that was into Prime Water's wife, and then he made basically like it was like a crypt fisher like smiter type build, and we were like, yo, like you could just use Surge to like probably good effect. He's like, yeah, I'll just use Surge. And then immediately after that, we got the Crimson Dagger, and he's like, I don't want this anymore. Like, literally 10 minutes after we convinced Afra to give him Surge, we got the dagger, and he's like, yeah, I'm just not vibing with Surge anymore, guys. And like he
Surge
failed his
was
initial
so
charisma check.
pissed.
He failed his initial charisma check with Surge, and I'm pretty sure Surge was like, I think he said kill Afra or something. I think that's what Lariotis said.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Serge was so heartbroken at Afra's rejection that as soon as he got his hooks into the crit fisher, he was
Deviant.
Davian. He was like
Yeah.
he's like take her out, take her out. This is the first chance you get, kind of deal.
Yeah,
So.
and we like just and then we like finished the succubus, and we got like all the treasure in the vault, and we're like, man, we have all this money. Waterdeep's right there. Let's just go to Waterdeep. And then we were like, hey, we're in Waterdeep. We could probably just find someone to buy this shit because like we don't want him anymore. So we sold him under the pretenses of you need to lock him away for a long time. Like.
Yeah, it was one of your rare good guy moves that still somehow managed to be a bad guy move. Basically, like, a bunch of rich good guys paid them for this because they wanted to make sure it stayed out of bad guy hands. So, like, some rich muckety muck in Waterdeep purchased it, basically, and locked it away so that it couldn't cause any more problems.
I mean, that's way different than being locked in a lead chest and living in my pants for the rest of eternity.
Oh, yeah, like when we got him, I was like, man, that seems like a cool weapon. And then it got passed around a bunch, and then
Not a whole bunch.
Oh my god!
not a bunch. I didn't give him a bunch, but like
So,
twice,
okay.
right?
So,
By
I
the time that-
totally.
that's like he was like, I will drink your blood. I will drink your souls.
Yeah.
When we first found him, and he was like talking to all of us, I totally flubbed like the introduction. That made me think that I was like an idiot because I did. I Crash took me to secret chat. I was like, and then he's like, okay, we're moving on. Then I felt like then I used him a little bit. I thought we were getting along. I felt like as just like the fighter rogue that I could use him pretty effectively. But then this is also my first campaign, so I was knowing that there's going to be a bad deal towards the end of this. And that's definitely my question. Like, what would have happened if I had just like stuck with him the whole time? Because you dropped a couple times. Like,
Oh,
he was gonna get more powerful or something.
So if anybody had made Surge happy, he had more and more abilities that he would give you. But then ultimately, when you go to fight She Who Hungers, through Surge, she would have just taken control of that character, and then that character would have gone against the party.
What were the rest of the abilities?
I was so afraid of that happening, or like, because it was like.
Oh, I mean, it would have
it's gonna-
eventually been like a +3 weapon. It would have had throwing and returning. It would have started doing thundering damage. Yeah. No, it was a very powerful artifact weapon. Yeah. But
And I
feeding
seem to make a
it fish, constantly missing on attack rolls, being rude to it, never taking it to the beach, stuff like that. It got really upset with both groups. It was very magical. Sentient items are not easy to handle. Like that's part of their thing, is that they're very almost robotic. Like they're programmed to do a thing and feel a certain way and think a certain way, and they cannot be swayed any other way. Like, because that's the way that they are. They were made that way. So yeah, and that particular one had quite a chip on its shoulder. So.
Yeah, and I killed quite a few things with it, and then there was the ones I made a lot of the charisma saves, but I probably shouldn't have. I got really lucky for most of those rolls.
Yeah, same. I made all of mine.
Yeah.
And,
Well, to
and
be
then it
fair,
had
though,
to try.
you were using your charisma though, like in your build.
Well, but not like I wasn't proficient.
Yeah, neither
was
of the people making the saves against him had proficiency in charisma saves, which is fascinating.
Yeah, just got lucky over and over again, and then it had me try and kill one of the other party members. Like, okay, and now that was when I knew this was going to be a problem. And then I tried to hand it off to this guy, Pharaoh. And I'm like, because he literally asked me, oh, it'd be really cool if I could use Surge. And I was like, okay, I'm thinking about, why don't you try it? And then he gets it. He fails the save, and we have to beat him up. And then he's like, no, I don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry for those 2 bolts to the chest.
He's
I said
like,
I get
"Blah,
it. Yeah,
blah,"
it
and
was,
it's down.
and then what was it? I'm recovering from dying and I'm holding it, and then he just goes quiet, and I was like, oh, like he doesn't want to talk anymore. Like what? I don't know if I did something wrong or if it was like because that was the episode where I died. I just got back from being dead, and I'm like, for some reason, Surge is by the bedside, and I have to make one last charisma save. And I
Yeah.
made it, and then he just goes quiet, and it's like.
I mean, at that point, he was kind of like defeated, because he hadn't been able to seize control of anyone. Nobody was like killing stuff on the regular. He'd been away from the ocean for a long time. At that point, it was just like, bide your time, wait and see what happens. Then he gets put in a lead box and thrown into extra dimensional space, and only brought out again as bait to kill the Sahaugan leaders. So.
But he wasn't even brought out.
I know.
We made a fake blood box.
Because we knew if we brought him out, he was gonna do some shit.
Yeah, Serge had a bad time. He had a bad time, but he was 100% from the first book of Evil Tides. So that flooded caverns and the sunken temple and the weird membrane that he was inside. That was all from the original Evil Tides adventure. So he had a whole section towards the back and he had a brother, which I thought was kind of weird. He's like related to another magical artifact trident from a different dungeon, which I thought was kind of interesting. But yeah, I'm trying to see if I could find him in the.
Is it Wave?
Wave,
Yeah,
yep.
Wave,
Yeah,
yes,
his older brother, essentially, that he lived in the shadow of Wave. Yeah, but I don't know if you're watching the stream, but there's the big shark that you guys had to fight. Yeah, so all of that, this old school ass second edition adventure was what you guys were doing when you were down. They called them the Drowned Caverns. There we go. But yeah, it had the big shark, it had Surge, all that stuff. So I don't know. I tried my best to bring as much of that second edition path into it. Anguillilysis was the final bad guy of Evil Tides. So the final bad guy of Ghosts of Saltmarsh, as written, I guess, was like an avatar of Orcus that you had to fight underwater. But it didn't feel. It kind of just felt tacked on, like a lot of the Saltmarsh stuff. So I swapped for the bad guy from Evil Tides instead. So, or maybe it was Tharizdun? No, I can't remember who the main bad guy was supposed to be. But basically, you just were like underwater, and there was like a bunch of undead, and like a big bad evil monster underwater against a bunch of undead. And that was it. That was the final battle. So.
I like that one you made better.
Yeah. But the Anguillilysis, that was actually like this big kaiju monster worshipped by the Anguillians and all that jazz. That was the final. That was the ongoing plot line of the Evil Tides trilogy. Was these deep sea Sahaugan called the Anguillians were going to bring her back, or wake her up or whatever. So, but yeah. Which worked really well because I was able to come up with a reason why the adventure is called Ghosts of Saltmarsh, since there weren't any fucking ghosts in the adventure, even though they called it the Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So I actually put the ghost in Saltmarsh to make it the Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So I was pretty happy with how that turned out. The Dwarven Mines was literally one paragraph in the adventure, where it was like, yeah, there's some mines, and I don't know, maybe there's some stuff in it that they could look at. And I was like, cool, very helpful, very helpful. So I was like, the mines could be one of the different ways that they get down to the vault. So that kind of got fleshed out more than normal. So I was impressed that both groups handled the danger at Dunwater in a diplomatic way, because I'm in like DM communities and there are groups that straight murder hoboed the entire lizard folk population. Like they treated that community as a dungeon. Like they went room to room and they killed the women and the children and the sand
Oh,
people.
God.
Yeah, there are groups out there that just straight they're monsters. And they just went and killed them all. Just killed them all. So I was like, wow, that sucks. And there was setup. There was setup because in the beginning you could tell that they were trying to sew the different narratives together at least. So they had put lizard folk on the Sea Ghost, and those lizard folk were supposed to chain into Danger at Dunwater. After Danger at Dunwater, they stopped trying. They were like, I can't think of how these adventures are related to each other anymore, guys. Let's just fucking put them in the book and call it a day. Yeah. So, I think there was like a small shout out in the final enemy where they're like, "Yeah, remember those lizard folk from chapter 3? Uh, yeah, they're dealing with an entire fortress now of Sahaugen that nobody noticed. That's just right off the coast." And I was like, "Oh, okay." But I don't know. I think in the end, I hope in the end everything got sewed together in a way that made some kind of coherent sense. But um, it was definitely a struggle. I made a huge paper flowchart, like serial killer wall style, to try and figure out how to tie everyone's characters and the 7 different Saltmarsh adventures and the 3 different Evil Tides adventures. I tried to figure out a way to tie them all together in a way that would still like somehow make sense. So hopefully it made sense to everybody. I don't know. Did you guys end up with any unanswered questions at the end that you?
Um, I mean, my only thing was I was a little surprised my dad didn't betray me at the end.
Really?
Yeah, it seemed like that was like a big possibility, and you like heavily hinted at it when like we were talking about it,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And it was like always in the back of my mind, like, all right, we killed She Who Hungers, like, is
I mean, you did what
is he gonna pop up and steal the shit, or is he gonna like be a proud father? And we
you
just
did
kind
what
of
he
epilogued it as proud father,
you
which I
did.
was really happy with.
Yeah, you did what he told you to do. I mean, like, Red Wizards of Thay, I mean, they're like smart Sith. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're willing to do what's best for your family and your country, which is to say subjugate an entire region of the Sword Coast, why would they be mad about that? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I didn't think like be mad, more like, here's a chance for like me to seize this power kind of thing,
oh,
like Sith betrayal
but
kind of thing.
he's already like running shit down in Thay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to get subverted. Like that could be the end result with Jenna.
That's true. That's true. So
I won't lie, you did have me like shitting myself when we were in Waterdeep and like we ran into those wizards and like we were having that like conversation like in that like awkward restaurant,
oh
like
yeah.
That was
I
awesome.
like they're asking me like all these questions and I'm just like, shit, what do I say? Like
Yeah.
we gotta run. I gotta get, non-detection in my spell book. Why haven't I thought about this yet? Like,
And that's how you
but
ended up with a Baylor on your ship.
yep, which
Yeah.
was a crazy fight.
And the ship, that's another interesting thing, is the Moon Group, they had the Sea Ghost, and they renamed it the Indecisive. And they took very good care of their crew. They didn't take a lot of unnecessary risks, and they developed friendships / relationships with the crew, took care of them and all that. And they never like got a bigger ship. They kind of just maintained what they had. The ship would not volunteer, but would be hired out by Saltmarsh to escort merchants and guard fishing vessels and things like that. Uh, then there was in the Sun game the random encounter at sea with the Hobgoblin pirates. and I was like, oh shit. And you guys had like ship to ship combat, and you were like, nah, none of that. And you just rammed your ship into their ship. And then it was this ridiculous fight against like a ship full of hobgoblins. And then that's where, gosh,
Alvis died the first time.
yeah, that's where Alvis teleported over. No, that was the for keeps
No, that was
dead.
Davian. Wasn't that Davian?
No, Davian was killed by the Baylor.
Yeah.
Albus was killed by.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but-
Davian was killed by the
Yeah,
Baylor.
it turned him
when
into a fucking giant ape in the middle of a fight.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys rammed him, like lost so much crew, lost like your cleric for keeps. Like it was bananas. And then they had 2 broken ships that with magic they limped into Mintarn. Got them repaired, sold both ships, and then took the money to buy the biggest ship they could get. Which, once the ship was like, once they had a ship that big, there's like nobody's gonna fuck with a ship that big. So that kind of removed a lot of like ocean encounters that could have happened, because it was like, who's gonna mess with a ship this big? Because they spent so much money on like cannons and just outfitting it with like all the bells and whistles. Yeah, the only encounter they ever had on the ship after that is when the Red Wizards of Thay summoned a Baylor and a bunch of demons to attack the ship. But beyond that, like it was just too big. Like nobody's gonna mess with a ship that big. And for me, it was like I was like, where am I gonna find a ship this big? And fortunately, there was a guy on Reddit that made one in Dungeon Draft, because there just aren't ships this big. Yeah, I didn't realize that ships were this big, like until I had to find a map for it. Like I played Divinity 2, and there's a ship in that game that's really big, and I was like, this is silly. The ships aren't this big. Ships were that big. They did make ships that big. It's just that, the popular trope is you got a nice little schooner and a small intimate crew, and the small little schooner that everybody calls a galley or whatever. Yeah, it's not. The ones you see in Pirates of the Caribbean and all that, they're little tiny ships. These are little tiny ships that we're all used to seeing. So having like this really big ship, for me as a DM, I was just like, oh my god, there's not much that's going to deal with this ship, which was important because I have another campaign that has a big ship like this, and it made me kind of reevaluate like who would be dumb enough to mess with a ship that big. You'd only ever get attacked by like a whole fleet. You'd never really have like a one-on-one ship battle against a ship that big. So that was interesting. But yeah, there's just little things like that were different, like all the way through. Different decisions that were made about everything. And the longer the campaigns went on, like the more divergent they became from each other, which was very fascinating. So,
Oh, what happened to that Kraken that I pissed off by accidentally mind controlling it?
okay, so in this Sword Coast region, there are 2 Krakens. One who is well known, Slackrathel. He is a major mover and shaker in Forgotten Realms, and he controls the North Sea, all of the North Coast, everything north of the Moonshae Islands. He controls that entire region of ocean. You guys were kind of south and west of the Great Sea, like past Evermeet almost, where you were going to get the salvage run, and that's where you ran into like the South Seas Kraken, whose name I can't recall off the top of my head. But essentially, yeah, I mean, once you left their territory, they didn't really have too much interest in following you guys back into Slackrathell's territory, essentially, because Slackrathell's that much stronger than the other Kraken. So
Okay.
yeah.
I say no, like every time I went out in the ocean, it's gonna get hunted down again.
Like more than likely, if either group had a TPK and failed, and She Who Hungers had gotten the souls and gotten her full power or whatever, more than likely Slackrathel would have had to show up, and then they would have kaiju battled it out for the region, essentially, because like he's that powerful that he would have probably been able to 1v1 her post Soulforge. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a tough dude. Tough dude. He has a whole like criminal organization called the Kraken Society, like spread all through the Sword Coast. Which there was some Kraken Society stuff going on, but none of that really got delved into too deeply.
Yeah, I remember. We went and investigated the docks, and that's when we ran into other cultists. So many cultist groups.
There was a lot going on. The different cults were there because they all felt drawn to the region. Like their different patrons for all these different cults all had their eyes on Saltmarsh because they all either knew or heard that there was going to be some big event that would make power available. So there was a lot of smaller groups and a lot of BBEGs that were sort of circling the area, trying to get in on that and figure out what was going on. So in the beginning of the campaign, the abundance of all these different cults was them basically scouting the area and seeing like what was going on. So
Did they ever run into the Kraken that we saved the baby Kraken for?
that was Slackrathel that you
Okay.
yeah, that's why when he was like, yeah, well, I'll do you a favor since you saved my kid, I don't want to be indebted to you, and you guys were like, can you take out um can you take out this wizard for us? And he's like, no problem. And then he did. That's because that's the level of power that guy was operating with. He is yeah.
That reminds me. What was Kelidek really dead then? Because we weren't sure.
So any 20th level plus wizard is going to have clones hidden all over the place in pocket dimensions, in demiplanes, in other worlds. So you never really kill like a high level wizard, because yeah, their clone will just activate after they die. So, but your wizard was dead. Yeah. But I mean, now one of his clones activates and kind of takes over from there. So
Fortunately, he probably thought that we didn't really have much to do with it. It was probably mostly the Kraken.
probably. So poor
That
Kelidek.
vision was super cool.
Poor
We
Kelidek.
were so scared of running into him for most of our campaign, but we never actually did because we were buying all these magic items, like from different vendors.
And that's where I kind of had like the two campaigns kind of butting up against each other. Is like I didn't want you guys to have too many BBEGs. So I basically had, since one group kind of took the lizard folk path and then one group didn't, I basically like moved Moon into that series of stuff that would lead up to Synesis the Poison Kiss, the Black Dragon, and then the Sun group got moved into a path that would take them to Kelidek. And then when each group dealt with it, essentially the other group found out that, oh, this particular threat has been dealt with by someone else. Essentially, they've been their piece has been removed from the
too.
yeah.
Awesome.
So
Did you ever tell them about the lighthouse?
we had talked about the lighthouse, I think, before you got here,
okay.
where you almost killed everybody at the end of the campaign.
Yeah.
Yep.
You guys really dodged a bullet. Really dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, you guys had this cool lighthouse base, and you fixed it up, and I made a special map for it, and then they were like, "Cool, it's too far away. We got Saltmarsh business."
Too far away. Just like you were like, I'm gonna throw some time sensitive stuff.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because that's when it was like, Yellen was like, I need you to take care of this Daggerford problem. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he offered us so much money for the Daggerford problem. Like right after that, we were like, "Yeah, I mean, we can't
We'd be
not
foolish
do that."
not to do this.
Yeah, like You want us
So
to
the-
assassinate the Lady of Daggerford for
Oh,
that
how
much?
did
Sure.
how did your did you do like the party in Daggerford? 'Cause we just like
We
we
did
spent
not.
a lot of time in that house. We spent maybe like a month and a half in that house.
We
Yeah.
went to Daggerford. We
Oh,
infiltrated
you
the
went to one of the
sewers.
sex parties?
Not all of us.
Yeah, we just like found a door in through the sewer. Like we went to Daggerford. Luck of the draw was like check the sewers, and we were like, all right, we'll check the sewers. We found the entrance, and then we're like, all right, so tomorrow are we killing her? Like, okay, okay. And we just like went right in, and we were out of Daggerford in like a few sessions.
We were so long.
It's cause weird. Cause I think we were kind of ahead on the kind of the main story path, and then you guys lost some players, I heard, and then yeah, the Daggerford thing took like 2 or 3 sessions for you guys, and we spent a lot more time because we had a character backstory stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Moon ended up with a lot more like ties to Daggerford, I think. Cause there was Tari and the succubus situation where Tari was like a gender fluid, gender neutral, like Selkie type character, and succubi as a species or a gender fluid thing, and they had like a really high charisma. They were like knocking it out of the park with their performance checks and their persuasion checks. And so like the succubus was like, I like this. I want this for myself. So and then there was this is my adopted son slash apprentice, and now he's trying to betray me and take the thing away from me that I want. And oh, it was a mess. It was a
It
mess.
was a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. It was yeah, it was definitely a mess. So
But Fireforge brand ale was invented in Daggerford.
yeah, that's true. That's true. One of many things that happened to Daggerford. There was definitely a lot going on in Daggerford. The Moon Group, they tried a lot of different techniques to like learn about Lady Daggerford and kind of make sure they were doing the right thing and make sure they were handling it in the right way and
Politically, yeah.
yeah, politically and stuff like that. Whereas like the Sun Group, they came in like Suicide Squad style and we're like, we got to kill this lady. Oh, this lady's much stronger than we thought she was. It doesn't change anything. It's still enough money. We're gonna do it. And yeah, that was pretty much it. Just kind of like get in there. They did attract her attention by breaking into her vault, though. That actually played out the same way for both groups, which I thought was interesting. So nobody tried to just ice her in her bed or in her house or anything like that. Like both groups ended up running into her because they had broken into her vault. So the fights actually played out very similar. With the wall of fire dividing the party and so on and so forth. But
Did you guys have the mirror and like somebody that gets sucked into the mirror?
Oh
Nobody
no.
got sucked in.
I'm like familiar with like those type of mirrors, and like I'd actually been talking about wanting to buy one for our boat like before we even went there. So it's kind of like crazy
Yeah, there was a mirror
that
of
the
life
mirror was
stealing
there.
in one of the treasure shops.
Yeah, I
Towards the
wanted to buy
beginning.
it
Yep,
and use
yep,
it on the
yeah. I wanted to
succubus.
buy it too. I wanted to buy it too.
remember.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, I was kind of like just familiar with those kind of mirrors, so I was like, I was like, can I roll like a check, see if my character knows about it and stuff? And it's like, oh yeah, it'll suck your soul. It's a mirror of life trapping or whatever. But we used the mirror to like great effect afterwards. Like we took it with
Yes,
us.
you did.
I thought we were all gonna die in the succubus fight. It was a rough fight.
Yeah, it's crazy because like how much like bad feelings we have for Surge. I really don't think we would have made it out of that fight without him to summon the water elemental, because we like summoned a water elemental and we like put him
Yes.
in the wall of fire, and he's just like
Yes, that
taking
made a
wall of
world
fire
of
damage every
difference.
turn, and we're using him like a slippy slide through the wall of fire.
What?
Yup.
And that's how we were like subverting like that main obstacle with it. But that fight was like crazy. It started with me trying to like cast a spell for 10 rounds, which at like 2 rounds I was like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing right now. This is not gonna. The spell's a minute casting time, and we're in combat. Like everyone's gonna die. Because I was trying to, I was afraid she was like teleporting away, because you know she's like teleporting a lot. So I was like trying to cast oh, what's it called? What's the spell?
Our wizard
Counter
ran through the
spell?
wall of fire multiple times, so get her with the little dagger.
Yeah, but yeah, both fights she ranged across the battlefield. She had 2 succubus ads that would try and subvert whoever they could get a hold of to complicate the battle. Yeah. So I felt like that particular dungeon and boss played out very similar for both groups, which was interesting. Because most stuff did not play out the same, but that one actually played out very similar for both groups.
Did they have a normie who was badass?
Justin.
Oh,
Justin.
yeah, so Justin turned out very differently in both campaigns, but I'll let Pietro's player tell you what happened to Justin in the Sun game, cuz yeah.
So Justin ended up being from my my Spanish half orcs backstory. They ran together as mercenaries for hire back in Schultz, and Justin ended up leaving Pietro for dead after they tried to
Oof.
rob a black dragon's hoard. And I managed to force of will just get myself out of the jungle, and swore to myself I'm gonna kill him next time I see him. I ended up not killing him just out of a sense of pity, because he had fucked up his life so badly that I was like, you know what, me killing you, you know what, I'm past this. You have made your own bed and slept in it, and you have like super space AIDS, herpes, and I'm done with you. And I told him, look, don't ever cross my path again. I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to forgive you, but just
not worth it.
Get out of my way. And he made the mistake of going to Saltmarsh and was like, yeah, I know Pietro and blah, blah, blah. Because, we had fucked off for like a month going on our, traveling to Waterdeep and then our magical shopping spree. We get back to town after we lost another party member, Davian, and Pietro's just not in a mood, and I just tear him apart in the fire pit.
Wasn't he like running his mouth like about what
Yes.
happened in Waterdeep? And that was like what really was
and
just
and I told him, do not speak of this, do not cross my path, and you can have your own life. I don't want to see you again, and he did not do that.
Oh, and that's actually the night that the Prime Warders decided to bring you into their inner circle, because they actually came down to the Empty Net to see if you would actually execute Justin, because Kreb was like, this guy's life is already forfeit. Do you want to take care of it, since you know this guy, kind of deal? And then the Prime Warders came down because they didn't want anybody running their mouth about the Lady of Daggerford, situation, because now they're trying to handle the Lady of Daggerford. And so it very much came down to, like, if Pietro had spared him a second time, like, the Prime Warders would have just been like done with him. They probably would have taken Jeddah and Afra aside and been like, this Pietro's like a liability, kind of deal. But since Pietro did finish him off in the dirty, stone-filled fighting pit of the Empty Net, the Prime Warders actually brought Pietro further into the inner circle, even further than the rest of the Sun group. Yeah. In fact, I don't know if I'm allowed to say. Am I allowed to say this, Pietro?
Yes.
Oh,
go ahead.
yeah. They made Gellin made him a werewolf. Yeah.
Man,
So
now I feel like I missed out.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Justin would have never have done that.
Good old Justin. Good old Justin. So.
Yeah, we kind of had a knack of just like murdering people. It's like our thing.
Now,
Yeah, we were pretty good at it.
Eventually.
Oh.
The first time we tried, not so much.
Yeah, the first murder was so shaky. Like,
Oh, I'll put some stuff in the
Well, that's just 'cause I
regular
wasn't there.
art channel, because I guess since now the game's over, there's no use hiding it.
mm-mm.
Yeah, art.
So
Right.
there was two major deviations in the plot, where once you guys went into your like Team Magma, Team Aqua, Pokemon, Ruby Sapphire situation, where one of you was going after Kelodek and one of you was going after Synesis. To the Kelodek path, took them to this remote island which had an undersea sea lab basically, and they had to rescue this adorable baby kraken, which was one of the things in the written adventure, was actually going and saving a baby kraken from a bunch of cultists or whatever. It had nothing to do with any of the other adventures, nothing to do with Saltmarsh. Fortunately, I was able to bootstrap it to the rest of the campaign. But yeah, they had to go and save this thing because Kelodek's peeps basically had captured the baby kraken and were using it as leverage to force Slackrathel to hold off She Who Hungers, so that Kelodek wouldn't have to deal with her while he performed the ritual to steal all the souls from the vault. So by going and saving the baby kraken, that removed Kelodek's leverage against the kraken, and then they pushed it even further and got the kraken to take revenge on Kelodek directly. So they kind of sped through their content because they got one BBEG to kill another BBEG and then fuck off for the rest of the adventure. So that worked out surprisingly well. I got to throw all my Kelodek dungeon notes in the trash can, so that was cool.
Oh, we were supposed to fight Kelodek?
Yeah. So there was this.
I was not trying to fight level 20 wizards.
Yeah.
Like, I was not about it.
So there was this really cool map from Afternoon Maps, though, of this undersea lab. And there was this dungeon that they had to go through to get to the undersea lab. But of course, that's not what they did. They swam underwater, and they went right up to the glass steel windows of the undersea lab. And then they just fucking teleported to the other side of the glass steel windows. But it's not as cool as it sounds because they could only teleport like one or two people at a time.
Mention door, like I think Afra could Missy step in, and
Yeah.
like the rest of it was me just dimension dooring people.
So
in one
so
at a
they
time.
had a fight that had a baby kraken, a bunch of like bad guy knights, a bunch of hobgoblins, a bunch of bad guy blood elementals, blood mages. There was like an eel dragon. They summoned a fucking Marilith. And they're fighting them half in the room and half trapped outside of the ocean. And it was bananas. The fight was just really, really crazy.
It was, but it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a crazy fight.
We also 9 live stealered the like big bad.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
like in the very like the opening hit.
yeah.
It was so clutch.
Yeah, so it was there. Yeah, because like Kelodek's bro was there, and he was in charge of like keeping track of the kraken and all this other kind of stuff. He was like this expert with like blood magic. And it didn't matter because they just like burned him down, and then 9 life stealered him, and that was that. That was the big boss of the fight. It was crazy. It was really crazy.
Yeah, we like dominated 2 people too.
Yeah.
Also, and had them fighting for us.
What's we? You did. You did
Now-
not get
now-
that
Oh,
shit.
I mean,
Now
it was a
when
group effort.
Now, when you guys were doing that, Moon Group was over here trying to help Grandpa Oakham get his fucking research back. Okay, so
I'm sure that was cool.
since they were going up against Team Team Aqua, and you guys were going against Team Magma or whatever, like the research wasn't stolen by fucking Keladek, it was stolen by a bunch of kobolds, because the kobolds had stolen it to bring it back to Sunesis the Poison Kiss, because she was the one in their game who was going to show up at the Soul Vault and eat all the souls, because her signature thing was that she would eat her own young to gain their powers or their potential, essentially. Because like there was a thing where there was divination done that she would be destroyed by her own offspring. So she killed and ate all her own offspring, but then she was convinced that it made her stronger, so she kept like tempting fate by having more offspring and then eating it. And then the act of doing that turned her into a shadow dragon, which did in fact make her way more powerful. But eventually, these lizard folk who were opposed to her snuck in and stole one egg and then hatched it. And then that hatchling, the lizard folk believed would eventually lead to her destruction, which it did, because the hatchling was rescued by the PCs, who eventually went and killed her because of the connection to the baby and the lizard folk and all that. So you could argue that she did the whole like self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing, but she had her kobolds steal the research, and they went to this other dungeon that you guys never went to, which was like a flooded, like half sunken in the swamp, like everything was crooked, like because it was still sinking into the swamp. And they fought these kobolds, and then they fought like the biggest fucking hydra of all time.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, they fought a black dragon in the swamp that was sent by Sunesis, one of her mates. And then they went to the lizard folk village, and they fought like there was a big like grand epic battle where NPCs are fighting in the background, and they had to fight a kaiju sized frog hemoth. And then they went into her lair, and they had a fight against her that I swear to God, they pulled the entire dungeon at once, including the final boss. And so they were fighting this necromancer, ancient black shadow dragon, with all of the ads from the whole dungeon. And the dungeon was just this big maze of tunnels that would lead back onto each other. And so they were just roaming this whole thing, and I think it was almost 3 sessions long of like fighting everything in there, or fighting their way in there, pulling the whole dungeon, fighting the whole dungeon, and then fighting her. And it was like by the end, like I don't think anyone had anything left. Like they burned through all of her spell slots, she burned through most of their spell slots. I mean, it was like a heavyweight boxing match at the end where they were just like holding each other up and occasionally punching each other. It was crazy. So, yeah, it was very interesting to see those two narratives play out, and I was happy with the decision to split the groups to 2 different directions, because I felt like it would have been too much to have both groups do both side quests basically. So, and it also kind of gave like each one their own identity kind of heading towards the end of the game. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I would say that Sunesis was significantly harder than Keladek would have been, though, for sure. So yeah, that was a tough ass dragon. That was a tough ass dragon. But it was handled really well. They used daylight spells to basically corral her and trap her, and then once a shadow dragon is exposed to daylight, it loses like all of its cool shadow abilities and becomes like an actual manageable fight. So it was well done. It was well done. So
Did the Sun group? You guys said they had a cleric, right?
they had several clerics.
Clerics didn't make it.
So their first cleric was, I want to say, a storm cleric, because everybody wants to be a storm cleric.
Yeah, I think he was Storm Cleric.
Yeah, and he fucked off. He was just like too scary, not gonna happen. And then it was very much like he wanted, as a player, he wanted to go in a direction that nobody else in the group wanted to go in, and so there was a constant like tension there. And ultimately it was like not a good fit for the group situation. And then Sunday mornings are apparently a really shitty time to play Dungeons and Dragons. Because
Yeah, it got
yeah,
rough. It
it
got
was like
real rough.
it was like a revolving door for that six player slot until I finally was like, we're just not gonna do this anymore. We're just gonna play with 5 people. Because we couldn't keep a player 6 for more than like 3 weeks, it felt like. But they had that cleric, they had a awesome half orc zeal cleric, which was super badass. A zeal cleric can
Yeah,
cast
Willie was good.
yeah, it can
While
cast
she lasted.
maximized fireballs left and right, so that was kind of nuts. And then there was Alvis, who was a storm cleric, storm sorcerer, and then he was gone. He got killed, and then at the very end there was a a Minotaur cleric of Baphomet, the Lord of Beasts.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah,
cool. What?
He died the session right before the last
yeah, and
battle.
he
It
was
Aw.
he was killed. He was killed by the manifested hunger, and they were like, well, "We don't have time to fuck around with bringing him back. And we don't have time to fuck around with a new character showing up. There's absolutely no way we could explain that." So when they did the blood ritual and they sacrificed the merfolk that they had been keeping in the magic dress pants, they just kind of tossed the Minotaur's body into the basin that was, get this, made out of the shell of a dragon turtle that they went and killed, uh, to turn it into a basin. And he emerged after the ritual as a Garisto, which is like a demonic kaiju minotaur. So he got to do the final battle as a huge creature, and I think they casted large on him to make him a gargantuan creature. And a gargantuan creature with spirit guardians is a lot of spirit guardians. Let me tell you, it's a
Wow.
lot of spirit guardians. Yeah. So it was a lot of clerics. They
Yeah,
yeah.
we bought like a scroll of Revivify like so early into the session because we were like, man, like people are dying, like we're afraid for our lives. We're just gonna buy this scroll of Revivify, and hopefully like our next cleric can use it to like bring someone back to life. But it was always the cleric that died, so we're like, well, we got this scroll, but no one can use it.
And
and
and even with the UA from last November, where it added Revivify to almost every fucking class, they didn't have the class coverage for anyone to cast Revivify.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have been almost screwed if Illyria didn't have Revivify.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Because there was, yeah, when the Baron busted out the mythic recovery or whatever, that was my first time using a mythic monster, and I have to say that
Really? I thought it worked well.
I'm sold on that mythic monster shit. That was some cool stuff. Because the new design of 5e is to move away from legendary resistances because they're just not very fun. You know what I mean? Like, why would I waste time casting these spells? Why would I waste time learning these spells if the stuff that I want to use them on is going to use legendary resistances anyways? Yeah, but then by having like mythic phases, it's like cool for 33% of the fight, I could fuck you up with this spell because you don't have a way to auto save against it. But then the DM is like, cool, I still have a challenging boss monster because for the other 66% of the fight, they're gonna strip away the status debuffs and fight fresh. So I thought it was like a really smart design choice on their part. It took them 6 years to get there. But that's definitely for me, for boss monsters, more of the direction I'm headed is away from legendary resistances and more towards mythic stuff, and also less of the legendary action stuff and more of just the paragon actions. Because I think a paragon action gives more flexibility to a boss monster than whatever the 3 superpowers that you made up ahead of time that may or may not even matter in that fight. I almost think it's better just to be able to throw a couple extra attacks or reposition on the battlefield than to have a couple of super moves that can occasionally be performed. But yeah, that boss of the Baron. That's interesting is you guys fought all the leaders of the Sahaugen, and the Sun Group did not, because the Sun Group bamboozled all of the leaders of the Sahaugens, so they never actually fought them. But man, it would have been bananas if they had tried. Oh my god. Let me see if I got the map. I'll bring up the map for when they were powwowing with the Baron in his throne room, because it was a place you would not have wanted to be. Let me tell you.
And
I
then just
think I
scroll
got
out and show them the whole dungeon. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Like,
Let's see.
I at one point got a 28 on a deception check with disadvantage, and I was really proud of that.
Okay, so
Nice.
I'm gonna throw it up on the stream, but this was the room outside the throne room. Was all of these Sahaugen were just waiting outside the throne room, and then this was them in the throne room, and how big the throne room was, with the Baron, with all the stuff that was in the room. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff to fight. So this would have all come swarming in. There were side chambers full of stuff that would have come swarming in. I don't know if they would have, honestly, if they would have made it out. Some of them might have teleported away. I don't know, but to give you an idea of how big the dungeon is that you either skipped through diplomacy or skipped through smart gameplay idea, I'm going to zoom out. That was the throne room. So that's just one floor of the fortress. You can kind of see just how big this thing is.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was so big, dynamic lighting wouldn't work, and that was one floor. There were two more floors to the fortress. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah, but it's all good. There was actually like an avatar of their god Sekala, like was just roaming around in the fucking dungeon. So you could have ended up having to fight like a two-headed shark god. Again, I was like, a level 7 party is supposed to scout this out? Okay. Sure. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it was crazy. And there was a room full of babies to kill, because old school D&D. They can't you can't have old school D&D without a room full of babies. So there would have been a room full of little babies. The babies were combat capable though. They were actually very very strong babies. So but yeah, that was the dungeon that you guys kind of avoided, which in the end was a good move. I feel like you made the right you made the right choice. So
Did you tell them how we handled this situation?
that you guys used your use Surge as bait to draw them out, and then you had like a tower defense minigame. Yeah. Yeah, that was when whoever it was, I think it was Cadenix, said, "What if we use Surge to like lure about?" I was like, it was an actual light bulb manifested above my head. I was like, that's a brilliant fucking idea. Like, oh my god, they wouldn't be able to resist that shit if they did a good setup on it. Yeah. So that's how you guys ended up with this craziness, where you were fighting like wave after wave of Saugen as they came after Surge. Yeah. Because here's the thing, like I even like went down the rabbit hole. I was like, well, they have clerics, and the clerics would probably commune with their deity, and they'd probably be like, is it true? Do they have Surge? And their deity would have been like, yes. And then would have been like, if we go to the island, could we get Surge? And the deity would have been like, yes. And so on and so forth. So like, it was kind of like a foolproof plan, you know? If they were like, I want to scry on who has Surge, it would have shown them the group on that island. Like, there was really no way, even magically, that they could have not been drawn there, which is why it was such a smart play. So, yeah.
And the lead box kind of sealing it.
Oh yeah, because they couldn't be sure, but they knew through divination that you did have it. Yeah, so that was it was well played. It was well played. So, and I tried to keep it pretty loose too, because I didn't want us to get bogged down in like a Warhammer 40K situation where we were moving troops around the board and all that. Which is always the tricky part with 5e, I think, in general, is you want to have mass combat, but you don't want to have mass combat, kind of thing.
I don't know. I kind of felt like the two big fights we had, shipboard fights. The one with the hobgoblins, and then when the Baylor and the Varrock showed up. I thought those went pretty smoothly.
Yeah, I mean, but that's mostly because he like, all right, these troops are like over here dealing with this.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
you know,
lesson.
like-
Yeah, that's a lesson I
Yeah,
learned
that's a lesson
from.
Scales.
Yeah, that's a lesson I learned from Skills of War and from Skulls and Shackles. Because the first ship battle in Skull and Shackles, we rolled every fucking person in.
Oh,
And the
Jesus.
initiative tracker must have had like 70 people in it. And yeah, only 6 of them were actually PCs. So it was like a whole night of me describing NPC pirates fighting each other. And the group was like, "Bro, never again. Never again." Yeah, and I was like, I agree. So
I like that you allowed us to have trap cards on. So that was cool.
yeah, that was something that when I've been reading a lot of this Giphy Glyph stuff, the guy that makes up a bunch of homebrew stuff, and his ranger is actually based around traps that were set up ahead of time, air quotes. Basically, instead of like having to roll dice and be like, my ranger scouts ahead and this and the other thing, you're just like, of course the ranger scouted ahead. They're a fucking ranger. So when you're fighting and then the bad guys trigger one of the ranger's trap abilities, basically, they're like, haha, they're actually just stepped into one of my traps. And they don't have to like draw it on the board ahead of time. They don't have to like do anything. They just say, because you are standing next to a wall and one of my allies, that's the requirements to trigger this trap. This trap goes off. So that's why I was kind of like, that is a really cool way to handle traps if you're trying to basically use them on the DM, right? Because the DM is the game engine. So if you're like, I laid a trap for the DM's like, I know. I was there. I helped you. I helped you lay the trap.
I did it for you.
Yeah. You told me where to put it, and I put it there.
Don't you see this pink marker?
Yeah. I
That's
told.
your trap.
Yeah, we did it together. Remember? So I was like, yeah, that'd be perfect. So that's why I didn't want you guys to tell me what your traps were until you already sprang your traps on me. That way I could be like, oh shit, and be surprised by them. So yeah, as far as like a tower defense on the spur of the moment, I feel like that went really well. And then it still segued into a pretty cool boss fight too. So I think it hit a lot of the beats that it needed to hit. So it was a good substitute for an underwater dungeon that might have taken us 7 weeks. So or more. Oh my god, it was a big dungeon.
Now what am I gonna do?
Yeah, it would have been a
Sunday?
long dungeon.
Crash. Another question.
Yeah.
2 questions really. So couple of avenues that I wish we had a chance to explore was there stuff done up for Karina of the Bones if we had doubled back and was like, we're gonna blow up your fleet now, lady?
Let me show you.
And also, was the Pirate King a thing that we could have like pursued and like taken over all of like Tortuga?
All right, so here is the indecisive, right? The stream's a little behind, but so I'm on the indecisive right now. Here's their adorable baby dragon. They're much smaller than Willie, but no less fierce Spencer. Their Theodosia Sly Webb, still alive to this day. And so on and so forth. Now I'm gonna scroll out a little bit, and you'll see on the GM layer, what is this? Oh, it's a boat full of undead and necromancers and shit. Oh, what's over here on the GM? Oh, another boat full of undead and necromancers and all that. What's down here? Another one. Yeah.
Oh, is this Karina?
Yeah, Karina the
one we ran away
Bones.
from?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
She was on your random encounter tables the whole time. So you could have been attacked by 1, 2, or 3 of her ships. But I had it set up for all 3 ships could have been dropped on you at any time. if I had rolled it on the random encounter table.
'Cause
Even
we
had her
yoked out of there after getting the statue, but I was like, I want to be a pirate.
Yeah, she's over here, off to the side the whole time. There was also, if you had messed up the if you had messed around too much with the Sahaugen, like there was a chance that they would have summoned their an avatar of their god to take revenge on you, which I think I might have deleted it because you guys did not make them mad. Let me see if I have that thing's stat block. Basically, on this big ship map, there was this giant shark, like just this huge shark. Let's see.
No, there's our turtle bathtub.
Yep, there's the turtle bathtub. The turtle. I thought the dragon turtle fight was pretty dope. Let's see. Yeah. So there was their avatar of Sekala. That was supposed to come after you if you had killed the Sahaugen leaders. It was only if you killed the High Priestess would Sekala have sent her avatar after you. And since neither group killed the Priestess, you didn't have to deal with Sekala's avatar, which is good. Sekala's avatar would have been a threat even for the big ship. It would have been a disaster for the Indecisive. So it was pretty good that yeah. Yeah, but the priestess, she noped out of the ambush fight because she already didn't like the direction that the Haugen were going with the Anguillisis worship. So as soon as she saw an opportunity to get out of there, she just got out of there and redirected the Saugen efforts in a different direction. Yeah, but oh yeah, this big old shark was gonna come chop you guys up. Oh, so cool. Oh well.
Man, I kind of wish we would have had that encounter. That was awesome.
And the thing is like Skull and Shackles, they have to deal with all of the concept that you guys didn't deal with. So this big shark, I gotta come up with some reason for this big shark to just go and destroy the Skull and Shackles kids. So yeah. Any other questions about the campaign?
The Pirate King.
Oh, right.
Wasn't there like a standing like challenge, like he would face all comers in a one-on-one fight for being the Pirate King or something?
Yeah, the leader of Mintarn, which was the Tortuga of the Sword Coast. You guys could have definitely done that. I had a bunch of source books ready for Mintarn and the surrounding islands if you guys had decided to go in that direction. And then as a DM, I would have just shifted from a Saltmarsh focus to a Mintarn focus, and you would have still ended up doing the same shit. I just would have made it seem like you were deciding to do it because it benefited you and your Mintarn efforts. Like, that's the thing. Like, there's a way usually that you can get most of a campaign back on track, even if the party goes way off track, just by sort of changing the focus of things. Like, after all, like, there was a good guy party and a bad guy party that both ended up in the same final boss battle, but for two totally different reasons and with two totally different outcomes. But it was still possible to do that. So yeah, I mean, same thing. If you guys had gone to Waterdeep and decided that you wanted to live in Waterdeep, there would have been just as many issues that would have started happening to Waterdeep as were happening in Saltmarsh, and you probably just would have heard terrible things happening to Saltmarsh, and then that danger would have started to spread up the coast, essentially. So there's no like escaping, I guess, the narrative that you set yourselves on, unless you're in 100% like sandbox game. Then in an 100% sandbox game, you just sort of go in whatever direction everybody is going in. But generally, when I say I'm going to run a narrative, I try my best, no matter how far off track things get, to try to get things to stay somewhat on the narrative that was advertised. So the big exception is, of course, Skull and Shackles, where everybody as a group was like, "Hey, the written adventure's really stale. Can we just do pirate shit until we're level 16?" And I was like, "Sure." Yeah. So,
Oh,
yeah.
did you have a favorite like NPC or moment that you like to like that as a DM that you enjoyed the most, or?
Okay, so Gellin Primewater, as written in the adventure, I'm gonna read to you what I was given for Gellin Primewater, because it is much different than what I ended up delivering. I liked Ida and I liked Gellin as characters because they were friends. They were legitimately friends, but she is described as a chaotic good, you know, former sailor, gruff, pragmatic woman, with short-cut hair, whose face bears the marks of a life lived outdoors. She's keenly interested in expanding the fishing industry, um, and she's suspicious of the dwarves, and she doesn't like Daggerford. So, as written, I feel like I delivered Ida Owlin exactly as I was told to deliver Ida Owlin. But then I had this character art that I had been sitting on for a while, right? Of Mr. Mullet. And I was like, man, we gotta use Mr. Mullet for something. Like, this guy looks too. This is a Saltmarsh character, if I ever saw a Saltmarsh character, for sure. For sure. So when I was going through and reading all the NPCs, I got to Gellin, and then this is what the description of Gellin was. Gellin is a neutral, evil male human noble. He's well-spoken, dapper gentleman with a neatly trimmed beard and a fancy wardrobe. Yeah,
That sounds like the goblin.
right. It does. And then he's cultivated relationships with a number of contacts among the sea princes, which translated over to Saltmarsh would be pirates and criminal organizations and stuff like that. He moves illicit goods, including slaves. Let's see. He keeps his dirty business quiet. Let's see. He has a seat on the council. He uses that seat to help control, the destiny of Saltmarsh. His popularity in the faction is seconded only by Ida Owlin. He is the wealthiest man in town. And he garners a great deal of support by having many feasts, entertainments, and other diversions. And he spends a lot of money on donations and charitable causes in the community. Let's see. And he will often support Ida's positions when she comes forward, which helps mask his efforts of being a criminal. So, like, I was reading it, and I was like, this guy sounds pretty cool, but, like, I want to use this character art. So I kind of divided Gellin into two characters. I did, like, the older, foppish gentleman guy as Parson Perry, the goblin. And then I did him as more of, like, a man of the people kind of thing. Now, what was interesting is ran the game. Everybody met Gellin, and the first thing everybody started saying was, "This motherfucker a werewolf." And like, I looked over at the adventure, and I was like, didn't say anything about being a werewolf. And they're like, yeah, this guy's a fucking werewolf. And I was like, no, guys, this is not a werewolf. And both groups are like, no, he's a fucking werewolf. And I was like,
That's hilarious.
guys, I'm telling you, I'm not lying to you. He's not a werewolf. And you guys are like, wink.
And then you said, okay, he's a werewolf.
Yeah, so then I was telling my wife, I was like, they think Gellin's a fucking werewolf. I was like, and she's like, make him a werewolf then. And I was like, okay, I guess he's a werewolf. And then I was like, well, shit, if he's a werewolf, we'll just make his wife a vampire while I'm at it. Yeah, so you guys actually made the Prime Orders what they ended up being. Yeah, that was all player input. It's sort of like in Red Handed Doom / Guilds of War. The dwarves were never the bad guys, but the dwarves ended up being the bad guys because I got told every week that the dwarves were the bad guys. And finally, I was like, fine, the dwarves are the fucking bad guys. Yeah, so it was hilarious because I think it was the same night too that both groups ran into Gellin and they both were like, this motherfucker a werewolf. And I was like,
It's the eyebrow.
it's like, all right.
The scars on the face.
So then I just
wolfish grin. I mean, come on.
yes. So
That's
then
some-
I just leaned into it. I was like, okay, he'll do a werewolf. Then I was like, I guess I gotta give him a spooky wife. We'll make her a vampire. Why not? There we go.
And then I think the next time you met him, you played the Gilneas theme from Warcraft.
Yep. I was like, if I'm gonna go in, I'll go in all the way. So you guys were talking to him. I've got the Gilneas playing in the background, and yeah. So started saying stuff like he gives you a wolfish grin. He flashes like hungry teeth. I was like, all right, if this is what they want, this is what they get. Yeah.
I actually think my favorite NPC was his wife. And I remember the very
like her
first
a lot,
time we
too.
met her, like, she's like saying all this like super cryptic and like prophetic stuff. And I was like, I need an insider. And I rolled an insight, and it was a natural 20. And you're like, all right, come into the secret meeting. She's batshit insane. And that's all I got. I was like, okay. I thought it was because of the dirt. She's just crazy.
Yogurt, yogurt, nuts in the yogurt.
She's just crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought there was one point because I had made my character as kind of like he likes to play Dragon Chess, and I think at one point you're like, oh, she likes to play Dragon Chess. Oh, I'm gonna play her in Dragon Chess at one point, and then it just faded off. Because who cares?
Yeah. She she was a good way to bridge the content from Evil Tides. So she was Evil Tides, and he was Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and that's how I was able to kind of bring the two together. Because originally he's described as having a family, but not any other details. So she sort of filled the crazed prophet from Evil Tides arc angle while being tied to him, and then vice versa. So it ended up working out pretty well. So something that's interesting: she's a vampire, right? There is a vampire written into the adventure. Neither group ever found the vampire, even though you were standing on top of his lair. He lived under the Jamba juice.
I thought we went
In
to
the
oh,
well?
wait,
In the
well,
well?
in the well.
In the well, yep. He was
Oh, we all
Oh.
sucked on our.
yeah, like he was under the house of the well, and he had all the dirt. He had so much dirt on
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because
remember.
he lived under there, and the people who were using it as a headquarters didn't know he was there. And so if you had found him, he would have basically exchanged information with you.
Wait, was this in the house that crawls? or
No,
was
no,
this
this
in-
was the house down
No,
by the
this is-
docks, the little Jamba Juice down by the
Yeah,
docks.
like our one interaction with the damages, we had like one or two, but I think it was when Garuda was just like on drugs.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah, and he came back. He's like, guys, I bought everybody Jamba Juice, and it was like that was it.
I just
The-
that was Garuda being Garuda, just like the
Yeah.
oh boy.
Oh, yeah, 'cause there's something weird about the water in the well. Like it was
Right. It was
like, perfect.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we never investigated that. And then I accidentally dropped a cameraman out of bounds. I didn't see anything because I deleted
Uh-huh.
it immediately. but
Yeah.
It was. I didn't see
Wink.
it. It was just a broken map laid on top of each other.
yeah.
But that
So
was funny.
that's where that particular NPC was. There was also a side quest that neither group activated called Goats of Saltmarsh, where you found this relic that turned you all into goats, and then you
Aw.
had to figure out how to turn back to normal, and you had to play as goats until you figured out how to turn back to
Oh,
normal.
that would have been amazing.
That would've
So
been-
yeah.
As,
Oh my
But that's the
having been
that's
a
the
party that was
danger.
altered into crabs by the BBC. It's not all that great. We kind
Suicide.
of bullshitted our way out of that
Yeah,
one.
suicidal crabs. Suicidal crabs. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the jam. You say I got caught in the basement and I almost died there.
Yeah, that was some awkward RP right there. That was some awkward RP when you were like trying to bamboozle your way in and everybody's waiting outside like a bunch of cops. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I also liked Kreb Shaker. I thought Kreb Shaker was pretty fun NPC. I liked that there were so many bad guy NPCs that were able to sort of ingratiate themselves to the party. Because I like, you guys probably know by now how I feel about the deity alignment system. So, like, I like the idea that people are good and bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, Kreb Shaker is obviously a bad person. But at the same time, he never betrayed the Moon Group when they were hiding their contraband baby dragon in his establishment. And
Oh, you were?
yeah, and like he had plenty of opportunities to kind of screw over both parties, and just never really did, because he just considered his place to be sort of a neutral place where people could, perform business, and he didn't want to get mixed up in that in a dangerous way. So,
Plus, I felt like we paid him a lot because
Yeah.
that was like the place our crew went to.
which I also thought was interesting because there were 3 different taverns in town, and both groups ended up kind of gravitating towards the Empty Net. And I think maybe that's because it was tied to their patron, right? Like, Gellin was tied more to the Empty Net. Eleander was tied more to the Cop Bar, the Wicker Goat or whatever. And then Ida was tied more to like the International House of Pancakes or whatever the fuck it was called. So, yeah,
All wine.
I can never remember what that place is
Oh,
called.
that's where I went on my date. Okay.
Yeah, you went to the lobster wine place. Because Pietro, he took the owner of the honorable quartermasters of Joachim. He took her on a date to the International House of Pancakes. So,
I thought it
yeah.
was Olive Garden.
It's
Yeah,
classy.
it's the classiest place in town. Of the 3 restaurants, it's definitely the classiest place. Until it got that bad Yelp review,
Yeah.
Oof.
and then got bought out by a retired adventurer. Yeah. Oh man.
Did
Yeah.
did the money that Evenfang give Kreb, did you ever mention what he did with that?
Oh yeah, Kreb. I never told you guys, but Kreb actually invested Ebenfeg's money for him, and Ebenfeg had legitimate investments because
Yeah, I don't know why you guys were like, "Oh, he's gonna like screw him over, like we're gonna kill him if he fucks." Like, what would he gain by doing that?
yeah, like why would he piss you guys off and a dragon off when he could make money off of baby dragon's money? Like any good investor, he was skimming some money off the top, obviously. And then he had the money until Ebenfang asked for it, so he was able to reinvest the money and all that. So it just worked out really well. It just was fortunate that he found essentially an 8-year-old boy who was given way too much money and left unsupervised. So he was like, "Hey kid, I can make you rich." And Ebenfang's like, "Sounds good to me." So yeah.
I probably would have torn him in half if he.
I think it's really funny that like they left their dragon there and we just left him with a room full of pets.
Yeah,
all over
you
the
you guys paid him. You're just like, just give us the double for keeps, and you just left your pets there. Yeah. So, the Empty Net. Good times, good
they-
times.
I think it just had more
I-
character than the other bars.
Definitely
That's
did.
why.
Yeah.
More cooler idea. It's a bar that's like on a pier, like above the ocean.
Did they have a Doris from accounting?
They did not have. They did not have Doris from accounting in their campaign. Yeah, I mentioned that without that planar ally, they would that last fight would have been really hard. But they did not have none of their clerics really went in for commune or divination or any of that kind of stuff. So they did not have a sassy customer service agent representing their deity that they would call for advice. So
Did they have their Forge Cleric cast animate objects on cake?
yeah.
We didn't have a Forge Cleric, and what now?
Oh, they had
Well-
a birthday episode because they were so worn out after the ancient Black Shadow Dragon 3-week long dungeon delve battle ordeal that we needed to have like a beach episode basically. So one of the characters was like, "It's my birthday," and so we just had like a birthday episode where they did like a 3 pub crawl, and just got drunk, did drugs, fooled around, had animated cake, all that good stuff. So
Got attacked by crazy eyes, and then we basically fed her to Gellen's wife.
oh
Oh,
yeah.
man.
So when that
Crazy eye?
all right, so remember when it was raining, when it first started raining, and then the rain didn't stop, and you guys were headed to the empty
Yeah.
net, and Afra walked by that hooker, and the hooker started babbling about she who hungers, and then started eating her own fingers, and then Afra was like, fuck,
Get out of here.
yeah, fuck all that noise. Yeah, the mood group like knocked the lady out, and they're like, we'll fix her somehow, and they did not fix her somehow, and they ended up bringing her to the Prime Order's house, and and then and then Feliza the gnome is like, you idiots, you always bring bodies to the back door, kind of deal, and then
The two girls in the party are like, what the fuck?
yeah, and then they had like
We all
this.
split up.
Then they had this super stressful time where like Lady Prime Water was like freaking them out because I guess she had that effect on them, and then they were so freaked out that they forgot that they had brought the girl there.
Yeah.
So they just
my
they left without their dead hooker essentially, and then they
Unconscious.
and then yeah.
Sounds so wrong when you
and-
say it that way.
Yeah, and then the hooker ended up as breakfast for Lady Prime Water. So
This is an Archer episode. Like,
yeah, but this was the birthday cake they had. They
They're
had this.
all girls sterile. When they're dead, then they become hookers.
What I'm trying to remember is why the Moon Group put a dead person's head in a cake box.
Oh.
Oh, that was
right.
so we could sneak into the Jamba Juice.
The Jamba
Yeah.
Juice.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
that we killed somebody that they wanted.
Yeah, but we were gonna have Pharaohs prove to himself that he was a real cultist. He was gonna get in there. So we had Crab had a head that he baked or something to make it look like Ida's head. So we gave that head to Pharaoh, so we just let him go.
Oh, that's right.
Become
In
his own
order
cultist.
to sneak your way into the cult, Pharaohs had to kill Ida Owlin, but you didn't want to kill Ida Owlin, so you went to Kreb and you were like, we're supposed to kill someone, but we don't want to. And Kreb's like, do you just need a body? And then they're like, yes. And he's like, the whole thing or just part? And they're like, we just need a head. He's like, I got a few. Hold on. And then they're just like, none of these look like Ida. And he's like, we'll just pop it in the oven for like 20 minutes. And you won't be able to recognize it anyways. And then they're like, how are we gonna carry a head through town? He's like, don't worry, I got you. And he put it in a cake box. That's right. Yep. That was their solution to not killing Ida, was to put a dead person's baked head in a cake box. Yeah. What a weird
I wouldn't
campaign.
want to kill Ida. I mean, I know Afra didn't, but
I don't know. I feel like Afra didn't want to kill it. Did you want to kill Ida Owlin?
I mean,
Did Asta have like a vendetta against all the old people in town?
Afra was definitely an okay boomer movement. Yeah, she, and I think that the boomers in the campaign could smell it on her because they were very patronizing to her all the time. I think the only boomer that maybe she liked was Feliza. I don't know if she was okay with Feliza or not.
I was
but,
okay with Feliza.
yeah. Feliza would
well,
make the.
Felicia was never patronizing. She's sweet, and
You feel like a person making you a sack lunch is not being patronizing. I mean,
Or a doggy bag.
yeah. She would. She
no,
would.
that's just good manners.
I like
Yeah.
Feliza.
She would pack you guys lunches. She'd pack extra drugs in in Garuda's lunch. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, any other high or low points you guys wanted to discuss
I
about
just
the
want to
campaign?
ask the other group if if I am the record holder for getting eaten and swallowed by monsters. If they had a character.
Did we have
that
any?
was
I mean,
eaten,
we did get
swallowed a
eaten by
bunch.
She Who Hungers. But I think that was like it.
I
I
just
don't
mean
think there's
throughout the
any
whole
point where we
campaign,
really
from
had people
episode
getting
2
eaten.
to the last
Gertie
one.
got eaten. Gertie got eaten
Yeah,
by
yeah,
Siege of
and it was
Hunters.
Gertie that got eaten.
I
Yeah.
had a
And then
hard
like
time
I went
with
inside
the,
with
the
Gertie,
bodywalk
and
mounts.
I was like, I'm
Like-
sorry, I can't get you out of here. Too big.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if
curious.
they got eaten that much in the Sun game. Now that I think
I
about
don't
it.
think we. Yeah, I really can't think of any time.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you probably are the record holder.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hands down.
So how many times was it?
I
Oh,
got eaten by the snake in episode 2. I got eaten by Thousand Teeth. I got eaten by gosh, it was. I don't think it was.
So at least
Hydra.
3, maybe 5.
And then I got eaten. Yeah,
got-
probably 5 times.
you got eaten by the Keizu. The Keizu ate you.
Yeah.
Then.
And the Keizu ate me too. Yeah.
Yeah, She Who Hungers ate you. I really
Yeah.
don't think it was that bad. I'm pretty sure everybody in Skills of War got eaten way more than that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
a lot in scales.
The
I was
thing
just
in the
curious about like the
dungeons.
other campaign, 'cause with the other side, I want to know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Although I had to say I loved the running joke with Garuda about smelling like KFC. That was I love that running gag. I really did.
Yeah.
It was a scary running gag. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I told him at the beginning because
Andrew
he
liked him.
he said he's like so I was gonna play a gunslinger. Is that okay? And I was like, gunslinger was thematic for the game. It's a map burster class, so it's gonna be broken in some ways and broken in other ways because he does not make balanced classes. He makes classes that are really good in certain situations and then terrible in other situations. And I was like, yeah, that'd be kind of cool, gunslinger, because guns, they're illegal. You're bad guys, so you're a gun runner and you like guns. Yeah, that's cool. He's like, then I think a different day, he was like, so I was thinking about being an Aarakocra. And I was just like, so you want to be an Aarakocra gunslinger? Like, you want to be a ranged flying character? And he's like, yes. And I was like, let me tell you. Let me tell you how dangerous it is to be a flying character in one of my games. So I sat him down, I walked him through the many deaths of flying characters in previous games, and he still was like, I'm gonna do it. But he never flew too high. It was like a person who was told the story of Icarus. Like I never
Actually
yeah.
listened.
Yeah, I never had to worry about him being like, well, I'm gonna scout the whole fucking area myself. It's like, okay, cool. But yeah, he played a flying character who was a flying ranged character, so he was very rarely in danger. But when he was in danger, it felt very significant. Even though he was a fighter and he had lots of hit points and all that jazz, he still yeah. I think Illyria Payne could probably attest that when you spend most of your time safely sniping from a distance, when you do finally get pinned down by a monster, I think it's extra scary compared to yeah. Like Skull, he's getting beat up on the daily. So it's like, hey, it's no big deal. But for a character that doesn't usually get attacked, to get pinned down by monsters is definitely a scarier situation. So,
Yeah, I packed 22 AC just to get avoided.
Yeah.
All the time.
Well, even then, it depends on the monster, though, right? Because,
But then that one dude knocked you out.
Oh yeah,
Killed you.
but the rolls for that particular string of attacks were so hot. I think it was nonstop 19s. They were dancing around 20s. It was just nonstop 19s. I couldn't even believe that he kept hitting Thogrim because I was so used to Thogrim just not being hit by attacks. In fact, I was like, hey, this guy's really strong. I'll just have him attack Thogrim for a while because none of them will hit. And he just started hitting, and I was like, let's see how far we could take this. And it went all the way. It went all the way.
All the way to the ground.
Yeah, and everybody was so used to him just never being hit that everybody was kind of gobsmacked. Like what? Yeah. So
it was it was a good change of pace. It was like ha.
The unfamiliar sound of a dwarf hitting the floor.
Yeah, don't worry, I won't tell anyone the secret. What it sounds like when a dwarf hits the floor.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There was so much build up to that too, which was really nice. So Hmm. Hmm.
I
Yeah.
guess one question I have for the other group is how is their like She Who Hungers fight? Because like we were like super amped up, you know, and I didn't. Did you guys like get amped up before the fight? Like I know I became a lich, and like we basically like shared the
What?
soul
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah, they
No.
stole Kelladek's lich ritual and used it on themselves, so they all became like horrible monsters, demons, etc., etc. So,
Who became what?
um, let me see if I can remember. Garuda became a Vrock and actually unlocked a special evil edition Garuda miniature, which was pretty dope looking. He ended up looking like a raven uh slash hawk type creature. It was pretty cool.
Bright
Um
red eyes.
yeah. The Minotaur became
Baristro?
a Garistro. Yeah. Garuda became a Vrock, so he had the Vrock's abilities. Jenna the Enchantress became a Lich, slightly nerfed, not a full-on Lich, but pretty much a Lich. Afra became a Deathlock, which is like a warlock who has either been fucked up by their patron or has fucked over their patron, and basically been cursed because of it, and then got a bunch of like spoopy powers based on that. And then Pietro was already a werewolf, so it just enhanced his werewolf abilities even further, essentially. Yeah, which is why when Thogrim was like, "I'm gonna use Player Ally," I was like, you want Doris from accounting?" And then if he had said no, I was just gonna give him like a solar. But he said yes, so I was like, then you get a motherfucking Marut. A Marut is like a CR 25 robot angel.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it has a 5/6 recharge. It just does like an automatic like 60 radiant damage in like a huge nuclear blast. And I think he managed to recharge it 2 times or
Yeah,
something.
it did twice. I hit her twice with it, but I also
Yeah.
wiped out like half of the mobs
Oh yeah,
on the stream.
it was crazy. So because they were going in pretty much just as they were, when they decided to drop 10,000 on a planar ally, I was willing to go pretty high on the planar ally. So and then the Marut was a perfect fit because she was weak to radiant. So every time he dropped that on her, it was, potentially 120 damage. So that helped quite a bit. But she just kept picking up that fucking Marut and like throwing it across the room.
Yeah.
And then the Marut would get up because I think it had like 300 health or something. It would
It
just
was
get
like 4 something.
yeah, 400 health. It would just get up and start like flying back towards her.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I was the Marut. I kept trying to bore into her eye.
Oh yeah, that freaked her out real bad. Nobody likes having their eyes messed with. Yeah, that's messed up. That's messed up. So.
Oh, come on. Yes, it's messed up, but that was a pretty good tactic. You got it.
Mostly I had the same, like, she was built with the heart mechanic that I lifted from a Theros mythical monster. The heart mechanic, I was like, they both have a sharpshooter, so as long as the sharpshooter makes it to the second half of the fight, it's going to be over, because once the sharpshooter starts shooting them hearts, they only had like 100 health each, so once the sharpshooters get involved, it's going to be over. So I wasn't too worried about that. But
Were you worried when it started off with a crit? You said it happened both
it happened to both groups. Yeah, the
Wow.
first attack from Anguillosis was a crit on both groups. It was an AOE smash with her hands crit on both groups. So yeah, I thought that was pretty sweet that both attacks came as crits. And
That's what I was worried.
yeah. No, I just smiled when I saw it on the Sun group.
course you did.
And then I saw the Moon group, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, the odds are obviously like 1 in 20, but I was like, man, that's pretty sweet. That's very poetic that the first attack of the final boss fight ended up being a big ass AOE critical. So yeah. Cause like I've had bosses where they just roll shit like the whole fight. They just roll shit. That's one of the sad things about rolling your dice out in the open is like you're just as much at the whim of RNGesus as everybody else. So like, you could have a super cool fight and the boss just never really gets any traction under him. Or you,
Maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, that made me actually think of like a really good question. Like, what for both groups? Like, what time were you like most scared for the group?
When did I think that we were gonna have a TPK for the groups, or just scared in general that the
Yeah.
group was gonna fall apart, or
I
uh,
mean, like, yeah, like, I mean,
yeah.
TPK, like, combat-wise, like, what fight was like,
the
were you like,
the
man, this is getting
hardest
wild?
fight for Sun was definitely fighting Jenna. That was the hardest fight. Yeah, Jenna was the strongest bad guy in Saltmarsh Sun for sure. Because you were underwater. Once you drop to 0, if you like you're kind of out of the fight, and then you guys are smart enough to like drop a coup de grace or whatever, on people and all that jazz. So I was really worried that that was going to be the end. And then when Alvis was like, I'm going to run away. And I was like, this is the second time they've had a cleric run away instead of sticking around to try to like heal everybody. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a horrible end to the campaign. And then that nat 20 got rolled on the on the death save and turned the whole thing around. So like the whole campaign pretty much just hinged on that nat 20. It was completely out of my hands at that point. I was like, wow, that's wild. Like I was after the session, I was like, I can't believe that the campaign's still happening, because if it hadn't been for that nat 20, because that nat 20, then the player felt like, oh shit, I probably should have run away. So then they had their character come back, but now it's like the walk of shame. You know what I'm saying? Because you ran away and now you're coming back, and oh man. The hardest fight for Moon was easily the dragon. The dragon was the hardest fight. I think. Maybe there were harder fights, but I think that was the hardest fight. I don't know if they were ever in danger of a TPK though, the Moon group. Because they had a lot. They were very heal heavy. They had a lot of heals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They had a lot of heals. They all had very strong builds, and if they didn't have a strong build, they picked very strong spells. Like all the spells that like DMs like join support groups to like, talk about, like were on the spell roster. So they had like a full range of like super powerful spells. Like eventually they'd start a fight where the bard would drop a hypnotic pattern and the wizard would drop a hypnotic pattern. Which at that point it's like we're not even playing Dungeons and Dragons anymore. You know what I mean?
Oh my god.
Yeah. So I don't think other than the dragon fight there was ever really a fight that they were in danger. I don't know.
I would
I
say
want to
the
nominate the
Succubus?
Succubus.
Oh.
No. Well, kind of, yeah, obviously for obvious reasons, but I think the fight for Surge against the lightning eel.
Oh
That was very
yeah.
close.
The lightning eel. The
That was-
undead. Yeah, the undead eel dragon.
We
Yeah.
had the Thogrum special, and it was working out.
Yeah, the only reason we won that is because Thogrim kept that Spirit Guardians going, and like I was moving people around because Tree got down, and it's because we pulled the whole fucking dungeon, and they all start coming through the walls and like doing
Yeah.
AoE attacks.
That was like a
that was a
recurring
bad-
That was
theme,
very close.
pulling
Dude,
dungeons constantly.
Oh
Yeah.
god.
Wait,
think we
was
all
I
did
there for
that.
that one?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. You
you
know what?
just-
I guess that was the closest one. Yeah, I think that was the closest one to a TPK.
Yeah, because we had 2 people
No,
down. I
Dragon
think, at
Fight
one
was
point.
terribly hard, but I just remember,
Yeah.
being very scared for that eel fight.
Now the succubus fight, the stakes there was she didn't want to die there, and she wanted to get away with Tari. So the only real threat there was she wanted to kill Pharos,
Pharos.
which she did, and then she wanted to escape with Tari, which she didn't do. But they had a different situation, right? Like for Sun, like she was mad. She had no connection to the party. She's like, "Why the fuck are you here? Stop it." that kind of thing. But with the other group, like, yeah, like she would have left as soon as she could have gotten away with Tari. Was essentially what it was coming down to.
her.
But she didn't want to try to plane shift with her against her will, or against their will, and have them make the save, and then leave them behind. So that's why she stuck around as long as she did, the succubus, because she was trying to get Tari mind controlled enough to be like, yeah, take me to hell with you, and then get out of there. So I don't consider I don't consider that one a close one, because other than killing Pharaohs, she had no intention of taking out anyone else. She just wanted to escape with Tari. So
I felt
I guess
so
I felt it
horrible
was
during
hard.
that
oh
because I
sorry.
wasn't there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
yeah, no,
Oh.
no.
I had to play as Justin.
Yeah, I just
Steven
that
Spencer. And then Justin got, manhandled,
Justin
right?
does.
Yeah.
So I couldn't play him anymore. It was just
Yeah.
Spencer.
that whole dungeon is getting slapped around for like a good month. I was like, I guess I just felt I feel damaged from that whole month. Just getting
good
whacked
D&D.
around.
Your character's experience is like the cautionary tale for warlocks. Like, everybody thinks that being a warlock is the hypest shit, but like it really isn't. It's a bad relationship. It's an abusive relationship in most instances. Like, yeah, there's the celestial warlock that's like, I serve this beautiful Kirin, and they taught me the magics of healing, and I go out into the world to spread good and justice. And then the Kirin shows up and is like, I baked you a cheesecake. And it's like this wonderful relationship. But like, most people don't want that. Most people are like, what's the most fucked up daddy I could have? Like, what do you got for me? Like fuck up my life, man. Just fuck it up. And it's like, well, here's my catalog of really bad patrons. Are you interested in any of them? And it's, oh yeah, this sounds great. Does it?
Honestly, Crash, I think you need a wheel of patrons, like the robot devil, and just like, step into my pile, I will spin the wheel of pain.
Or maybe like a dating website, but done up with like warlock patrons. Like swipe,
there you go.
like swipe left, swipe right. Yeah.
So like, I thought I was like 80% convinced that you were going to make me betray the party and side with
I was
you because
waiting
he was
for that.
If you had built up your rapport with Surge, yeah, it would have been an auto fail. Like, Surge would have been like, this is this is what we've been
That's what I
prepping.
was afraid of.
Yeah, this is what we've been prepping for, kind of thing. But the thing about a great old one patron is like, they don't, for the most part, they don't give a shit about you or what you're doing. Like, they call them patrons, but that particular type of patron is more you're studying their secrets and less of their showing you their secrets. Like, the great old one patron is, in the way I run it at least, is much more hands off than like a succubus, for example, who is obviously going to be very hands on, kind of deal. Yeah. So
Should have just listened to Thogrum. Switch over to Gond.
Yeah, did Ferris ever
I don't
have
know.
Gond?
I'm very unsure.
Oh
but-
yeah, that fake devil, that was totally Gond. Yeah, God just bamboozled you.
So he
into
trolled
being-
him?
Yeah,
Yeah.
God
Gunblade.
knew that a gunblade was all it would take, so he put you back in his rehabilitation program and all that jazz. So yeah. Mm.
Was their epilogue basically the succubus comes back and murders them all for doing what
Well,
they did?
I was about to ask you about that. Like, what happened with the
Oof.
succubus?
Well, obviously she escaped. She didn't escape. You killed her. So by killing her, she would be banished for a certain amount of time. You didn't use the dagger on her, so it's not nearly as long as you would have liked. But yeah, I mean, a good part of your elder years would probably have been spent having to come out of retirement and deal with her machinations, because she probably was not very forgiving of you guys taking away Daggerford from her and everything she'd worked hard for and all that jazz. So that's the problem with other planar beings. Like, when I was a kid in 2nd edition, I killed like a Cornigon or something. It's like a barbed devil. And it was a random encounter in a swamp, and it was a swamp that in Forgotten Realms. It was Evermore's, I think. And there's like nasty shit that lives there. And so we had it as a random encounter, and we killed it, and everything was cool. But I didn't know yet as a kid that when you kill a devil, it just goes back to hell, and then it can come right back. And so this thing came back, and it like killed my parents, and it like
Oh no.
it burned down the village I was born in, and it was it did not play nice at all.
All Al Capone on you did it.
Yeah, and then I was just like, who did this? And then I'm trying to figure out who did it, and then I find out it's this random fucking encounter from like a million years ago, came back to screw me over, and I was like, oh, that's how it be. Okay. Yeah. So as a player, I try very hard not to upset outsiders for the most part.
Yeah, I was
Ye-
just gonna say, like, that
Yeah.
has changed my after dealing with that. That changed my entire perspective on like how we'll play in the future if ever freaking devils and demons and shit are involved, because
Yeah.
you just can't. They're just hard to get rid of.
Yeah, mortals never really win when they dance
Yeah,
with
exactly.
immortal beings. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
unfortunate.
That's
Yeah.
That's
really
why you
how I
seek
designed the
immortality.
epilogue. That's how
Yeah.
I built the epilogue around. It's like, oh, he has to come out of retirement to get his soul back, or else he's not gonna be happy.
So I don't know how many people played. I forget which one it is. I think it was Grand Theft Auto 4, the one with Nico, Bellatic, right?
That's for
Yeah, it's old enough game. I think I'll spoil the ending. So the end of the game, there's a lot of different ways that the game can play out, but it doesn't matter because at the end of the game, Nico tries to stop being a criminal, and it lasts for like 5 minutes, and then the people he care about are killed because he pissed off too many people, being a criminal. And like you go on a rampage, like an archer rampage, and then the game ends, and then the people that survived are like, Nico, is it over now? And then he's like, that's what I didn't understand before. It's never over. And it hit me like so hard because I've been playing D&D since I was like 13 that I was like, he just summed up being an adventurer. Like you could never really leave it behind. Because inevitably, if you made it to any kind of higher level, you done fucked up somebody that is not going to be okay with it. Like you're never really going to be able to leave that life behind. So that's why we have our happy like epilogues, and we don't ever delve into
Yeah.
what would happen. But that's why one of my favorite books is like Kings of the Wild, because it's about a bunch of retired adventurers who have to come out of retirement. Because I kind of envision that any adventurer will inevitably be pulled out of retirement at some point to deal with some of the repercussions of their youth. Because that shit just doesn't go away, like it has a way of coming back to get you, inevitably. So, but yeah, like for sure, like the noble succubus wouldn't have let that stuff go. So that would have been a whole post campaign situation, unless of course Pharos and Luck succeed and they travel to where the succubus lives in hell and kill them on their home plane. Then they are killed forever. If you kill an outsider on their home plane, they cease to exist. You erase them from existence. So that's the whole paladin goes to hell thing. Is the paladin realizes that killing devils in the real world don't mean shit. So this paladin gets sent to hell on purpose and just goes on a killing spree to see how deep into hell he can go before he's taken out for good, because he knows that every devil he kills in hell is a devil that'll never come back again. Yeah, it's a pretty cool theory for an adventure. It's just a super murder hobo adventure though. It came out in like 2nd edition, I think. I think it's literally just called Paladin Goes to Hell or something, or Paladin in Hell. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't stress it too much. I mean, they'll be okay.
She's gonna come back, give Illyria a 1-star review, and then take a dump on a rug in the restaurant.
Absolutely, for starters. Yeah, here's the gorgeous cover art of a paladin in hell thrown up on the stream. This is not exactly the most go to hell equipment that I would have brought. I think two belt pouches, a wooden sword or a wooden shield, and a sword probably not enough to make it through hell. But this guy seems pretty confident on the cover of the adventure. So, see, we thought this was cool. We didn't have award-winning Magic the Gathering artists to design the shit. Wow, Monte Cook wrote this adventure. Holy shit, he's like legendary. I don't know. Yeah, that's what Pharos is up to. He's a paladin in hell in his after story. All right. Well, I got session 0 for Mythic
Alright,
Odyssey coming
I
up.
got
Oh, yeah.
one last question.
One last question. Okay.
Is there going to be a universes collide mega one shot? Is it gonna happen?
Like any character from any campaign could play in it.
Like yeah, for both the Saltmarsh campaign.
Oh, that'd be pretty fun. That could kind of play up to the whole succubus mad at both parties. You guys decide you need to team up to take her out, kind of thing. That would actually be pretty slick. So, all right, it's definitely worth thinking about for sure. I'll put it in the back burner of my brain. Yes, I'll even write the post-it note for it. Hold on. Let's see.
And then I would actually be able to suck.
Yeah, that's true. You'd be like, you didn't deal with me the first time, bitch. And she would be like, but sharpshooter's on the banned list, and you could be like, I'm grandmothered in, bitch. Yeah. If you and Garuda were in the same adventure, we wouldn't have to run it because it would just be over in like one round. So.
Oh
yeah.
god.
I get to play Epimasters Fighter.
Yeah.
He's respect to the dream, like everyone's level 15 for in the after story.
This stuff was a lot of fun.
Conti had started something like that where he was trying to do like he was going to run one shots and basically people could drop in, drop out, and have like a roster of characters that kind of just participate in an adventure and then don't. But I think when I announced that I was going to do the Paradise Vale West Marches, he was just like, "Hey, I'll just let you do that," kind of thing. But I like the multiverse idea quite a bit, where characters from previous campaigns could jump into other stuff. Not against the Giants, with Storm King's Thunder, there was a lot of content we didn't cover because Storm King's Thunder is very piecemeal, like you go to the cafeteria and you're allowed to get like 2 vegetables, but they have like 8 vegetables, but you're only allowed to pick 2 vegetables, that kind of deal. So as you're playing through it, it's like the party could fight one of the giants, and now technically it's D&D, you can do whatever you want. I could have been like, nah, you guys have to fight all the giants, and there are DMs that make their groups fight all 5 tribes of giants before they allow them to go to the next part of the adventure. But I was like, nah, that's too much giants. That's too many giants. So what I'm doing with them is I'm doing these limited, like, mini series so that we could take care of the giants that they didn't take care of during the campaign. And then those are like, just bring a level 11 character. It can be the character that you played in Storm King's Thunder, but it could just be any level 11 character. So that's sort of like a multiverse situation, right? Because like if there was an adventure like that took place in Forgotten Realms post campaign, technically any Forgotten Realms character could jump in and it would be believable, kind of thing. I don't know. I myself run my own multiverse. Like I'll play the same character in 5 different DMs one shots and just play it like it's the same character, and they just happen to get around. They're in Spelljammer now, and they're in the Shadowfell tomorrow, and they're over here the next day. Because, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, my characters can go wherever the fuck they want, because that's just how D&D works. But yeah, that kind of does bring up some cool ideas that we could do some post-campaign, like one-shots of miniseries that build off of what happened in the campaign, but are open to anybody, which would be kind of a cool way to do that. So All right.
Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
thank you guys for hanging out for almost 3 hours. Hopefully you guys got a glimpse of what the other group was dealing with and maybe some solidarity of certain things. And I don't know. But it was, for me, a really great experience as a DM to get to run the same campaign on the same day for two totally different groups who had totally different goals and themes and player base and everything else, and see how they started and ended in completely different ways, despite having access to all of the same content. So it was very, very fascinating to be a part of, and both groups were very enjoyable. So thank you guys for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Alright.
very much for running
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean, you
Thank you
guys,
as well.
you guys don't have to go anywhere, but I gotta go to the other chat to do the session 0 thing. So I'm gotta
Yeah.
switch over. All right, have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Night.
Good
Bye,
night,
everybody.
Crash.